actual show starts. I'm having issues with my Wi-Fi and computer all day. Oh, we're live already?
Are we?
I don't know. I think we are. We are. Hey, everybody, we're live. I'm Dan.
And I'm Steve.
And this is the Steve and Dan Show. We said that in the wrong order. We didn't practice that either, so that was pretty good for
it was.
Spur of the moment there. Arc Knight, hello. Oh, thank you, Art. And welcome aboard, Zed, if you're watching.
Let's try and get it pulled up on my phone here.
And do you know to switch over to all messages instead of top messages and all that? Because I get that. I know how to do it, and I know I should do it. But if anything happens when it resets it, it's back to top messages. And if I don't catch it, I don't realize it, and I start missing messages. Hey, Michael, how are you this evening?
There we go.
All right. Sorry about being a couple minutes late, but it was not my fault. Let's get right into feeding. I don't really have anything on the agenda this evening. I didn't really plan ahead a whole lot. Been kind of busy out and about and around the yard today, up and down the street a bunch of times, messing with that stupid trap. I made a fourth attempt to go down there and get some minnows in that little trap, and it was still empty. So I threw the trap out one last time. I'm going to check it tomorrow, and if nothing's in it tomorrow, even though that's exactly what I said today, but I still just, I didn't feel like riding home with the trap and taking it down, so I just threw it back in the stream, honestly. And I'll check again tomorrow. If I don't, I'm going to do what I should have done in the first place, which is take my big, I have a collapsible foldable net. It's actually a landing net for fishing. Mm-hmm. And since it folds and collapses when it opens, you know, it sort of opens like that. And so I've got this straight edge across the front of it, and it's like that wide. It's a big landing net for big bass and stuff. Right. So I can put that in the stream flat on the bottom out in front of me and just walk towards it and scoop. All I need is a dozen, 8, 10. I don't care. I just need a few minnows to throw in the damn pond.
Right.
I've spent the last 5 days going back and forth up and down the street, shooting video that I'm never going to use because, when I'm going back there to get the stuff, I don't know if there's anything in the trap or not. So I've got to shoot the video as though we're going to go get some fish, and so I shoot the video, I chit chat all the way back there, think of stuff to say and talk about, and we pull the trap out and it's nothing. And at that point, I don't know whether I should just shut up and hit off or wrap it up. So I always wind up wrapping it up just in case I'll use it as a clip. It's a complete clip at least.
Right.
And then
some filler clips.
Yeah, I've got half a dozen clips. So I'm still going to use my original clip of us going down there because we got to see that little fawn deer jump up out of the way. I still haven't looked at that clip to see if it actually came out. But as I was walking down, there's like a chunk of the stream where it's all like muddy and rutted. And it like right on the other shore, there's all this tall grass. And so as I was making my way down, I started commenting about how, this is clearly an area where the deer cross the stream. And right as I was saying that, this little tiny spotted fawn like appeared by magic in the grass in front of me and ran down the stream and hung a right and went up into the bushes and disappeared. That's so awesome. If it hadn't moved, I would have walked right past it.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
No idea that thing was lying down in the grass like that. Because as soon as I got to the water, I was going to turn right and go upstream, and it was across the stream. If it just laid there, it would have been fine. So it actually scared the shit out of me, but it was a tiny little fawn. All right, let's put some flakes up inside the tower and see if we can get some fish in there now that it's nice.
Hey, Dredd, how are you? Mr. Natural, good evening. Michael. Zini, what's up, Z-Man? How are you?
Zine Machine.
But yeah, back to what you were saying with the landing net. Me as an out-of-state Maryland fisher, that is the only type of net I'm allowed to use because I have an out-of-state license from Maryland. That's the only legally net that I'm allowed to use. I have to have caught the fish on hook and line and use that as a landing aid. I'm not allowed to use a cast net, dip net, anything like that. It's illegal in Maryland for out of states.
Even like a dip net to catch minnows?
Yep, 100%.
Really?
It has the fish has to be landed when
Right.
the net can
Yeah.
only be used as an assist in landing. It has to be caught
But
by other
I don't
means.
need any kind of permit to go catch.
But you got a Maryland license.
Even if I didn't have a Maryland license, I can go down the stream and catch. I've always assumed I could. Like, do I need a license to go down the stream and catch minnows?
I would assume so.
I've always assumed not. I'm just catching fucking minnows in the stream. I guess now that, once you're like, I've just done it since I was a kid. I never thought about it. Under 16, you don't need a license. Over 16, it never crossed my mind that I need a license to go catch minnows.
Yeah, but I mean, you're
but they are
fish and license carrier.
They are,
so
yeah, they are fish that I never thought about it.
It doesn't just mean the sport fish species.
That's all I've ever thought about. It's like when you go fishing with a rod and reel, like those kind of fish. Like you can catch fucking minnows, But no, you're right.
I'm not even allowed to use traps, and I used them growing up as a kid. Especially in Essex, the swamps we got back home.
I'm going to look into that and see what the laws are regarding catching minnows out of the stream, because that's interesting. Because do crayfish count? Like, where do they draw the line? And that's kind of what I was thinking the other day. I told you the story about the cop. My first thought was he's going to ask me about, like, do you have a permit to catch those fish or just something? Right. I knew I didn't need one, but I figured he's going to ask me anyway. But now I'm thinking about it, I probably would have needed one. And my license probably is not active. I know I didn't wait this long last year to get it.
Right.
I probably got it in May of last year.
Well, didn't we get ours around the same time? I know we got our boat tickets around similar times last year.
Possibly. Let me get caught up on a few comments here.
Oh, quite a few comments.
Michael, I don't know if the cherry barbs are still in there or not. I haven't seen them in a while, but it's also hasn't been clean enough really to see into the bottom in a while. And honestly, I haven't really looked hard for them since I have cleaned it. But I'm looking now, and I don't see them anywhere, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not in there. So I'm going to put a question mark on that. Hey, Dade, how are you?
And that is an excellent idea with the crab leftovers. You can use that as chum for tons of different fish, especially here in Maryland.
Yeah, I've tried several different baits, all of which normally work. I know it sounds silly, but the first bait I used was some shredded cheese and a few pieces of ham. I was having a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch.
I was about to say, you sound like you were making a sandwich.
Well, I used like old shredded cheese that's been in the refrigerator for a while, but that is what gave me the idea. I figured I'd throw some meat in there, so I tore a little piece of ham off. And then cheese is always a good bait for fish. That got me nothing. And so the next time I went out, I used actual fish food, which may have just like dissolved away too quickly.
Right.
But I used my Pro Crisps and algae wafers, and that got me 2 crayfish. Or actually, that got me a whole net full of crayfish. I got 6 crayfish.
What would
with no
last
fish.
longer? I would imagine you got dry cat food somewhere.
I didn't even think about cat food.
That would definitely last longer than a fish food would.
Well, cat food will work good on crayfish. But anyway, today I put a piece of rye bread in there. And, bread's always good for fish too. And nothing, not a crayfish, not a fucking minnow, nothing after about 4 hours of being out there. So again, I threw it back in. I'll go check in the morning.
And do you think the reconstruction and building of the new bridge down there may have something to do with pushing them out farther? And
where I dropped it, there was like 100 minnows. There was like 3 different schools swimming around. It's where I always go because there's a big.
Still they're visibly there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
There's a big overhanging bush, and then under the bush is like undercut on the bank because it goes around the corner, so it makes this deep, dark cave and like a whole whoosh, fucking 100 minnows go dashing under the bush.
It's been so long since I've seen a video filmed at that spot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to visualize.
I'll throw some kind of video together, but it's probably going to end in either nothing or it's going to end in us giving up there, and there'll be one final segment where I actually catch some fish with a goddamn dip net. Maybe I'll take the dip net with me tomorrow, and when I go to collect, if there's nothing in it, since we're here, and I'll try to scoop a few out or something. Maybe that'll be our final video segment. All right, Zine Machine said hello to you.
Eugene, how are you?
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, the crab. I wish I had some crab scraps. That's hard to say, crab scraps.
The spiders of the sea.
My indoor pond is probably, I'm going to say, with as warm as it's been, 74 maybe.
I'll say 73.
74.4.
Oh, you nailed it.
I know what my
yeah,
fucking...
you know your fish room better than I do. Of course, I do pay closer attention to your fish than you do.
Yeah, you do. Eugene, hello. All right, we'll get moving on to the next tank here in just a minute. I just want to get caught up on some comments.
And I remember you saying on the last stream that not Rick James, what's his fish's name? Bruce Brown is going to get much bigger.
Oh yeah, he could get 10 inches
Look
long.
out.
Like, as long as it doesn't fall in the damn pond, that's all I'm worried about. I used to set it over here on the edge until I hit a couple things with my knee. I did knock a tablet in there once. Why did that fall off of there? Oh, I guess I set it half up on the thing and it was at an angle. Dave, to answer your question, I don't have any goldfish in here that are changing color, except possibly, I don't know if you see this one that looks two-tone. It's orange and yellow. It's always been orange and yellow, but it seems like it's getting either more distinct or maybe one like the line, like it's getting more yellow and less orange or something. But it's noticeable now when I look in the tank, and it never was. It's almost like the opposite of No Face. Remember how No Face had the white face and like the darkness moved forward and his face isn't really white anymore? This one kind of had a white head, and it's like the whiteness is moving back and its body's getting paler and paler. So I guess you could say that that's changing color, but all the other ones are still pretty stable. Oh, look at the one in the tower.
Oh, see, that's my favorite one.
Yeah, that's well, my favorite one is the really big butterfly that's like silvery yellow white and is like a foot long now.
That one there.
This one there, or this one here.
That one's got the longer finish.
Yeah, this one does. This is the butterfly down here. But that one,
that one is huge.
That koi is so big. And honestly,
they're very active, man. They are just scooting around it.
Well, we're also screaming at them, or at least I am, and waving my arms over the tank and everything. That's probably got them a little stressed out.
Terrifying. The pterodactyls are coming for them.
No, I think it's feeding time. They always start and dash around like this when the food's in the tank. You just don't really see it as much. I do every night. They go bananas in the foods. And after I leave and turn the lights out, you'll hear that noise like all night long as they're hitting on the surface, and they go up into the tower. Almost every time I come in here, they're swimming around up in the tower.
They are a very noisy fish.
Yeah, they
I never
are.
really thought that they would be.
They're
so just derpy.
Yeah, they are very noisy fish. Goldfish aren't derpy at all. Even these guys, they're derpy just because they're sort of forced to, but it ain't their fault they're shaped like that. But they're goldfish are smarter than people give them credit for. And the goldfish memory thing always gets on my nerves. That's been disproven so many times. Like anybody that's kept a goldfish for more than a week knows, like, your goldfish quickly learns who you are, when food is, and where to swim the tank to get to the food. You have to have a memory to do that kind of stuff. I remember when I was a kid, my mom and dad would always tell me that like animals weren't, didn't have brains like we did. They were just kind of like automatons. They just sort of behaved on instinct. And I was like, well, then how, like they don't, what do you mean they don't have memories? And they're like, no, cats don't have memories. And I was like, well, then how, like, does it have to like hunt for its food bowl every day? Like, how does it know where to, like, how does it know how to come back home at the end of it? And like, my parents just couldn't answer any of these questions, as was most of the questions I asked my parents. And I almost wonder if at that point I didn't begin, by the time my dad was an old man, he had softened up quite a lot and changed his opinion about a lot of things. Unfortunately, a lot of his opinions changed in the wrong direction. But that's a different story. But I still don't know whether he thought that animals had memories or not. I'm assuming by the time he was an older man, he did. But when he was younger, he insisted that like animals don't have memories. They don't have feelings. Like, right. So why does the cat scream when you step on its foot? Oh, that's just a reaction.
Now, they may not have like a sense of time per se, but they definitely
they've got a
feelings,
great sense
emotion.
of time. You tell me a fucking animal like my fish know when it's feeding time before I do.
Well, I mean, like like when you leave, say you know the dog's at the house and you leave, whether you leave for 20 minutes or an 8-hour workday, that dog
How
is
do you
like,
know?
I haven't seen you in a week. Oh my God. It's just so happy.
Well,
I
you know
think that
what?
they just,
When I was 18, if my girlfriend went away for 5 minutes or 5 hours, when she came back, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. So that doesn't mean a whole lot.
right.
It isn't like I didn't understand how long she'd been away. I was just really fucking happy to see her come back. So your dog's always happy to see you.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean they don't have an understanding of your sense of time. They know exactly when it's walkie's time or when your fucking food bowl's supposed to be filled, and you know they've got internal clocks just like we do. So anyway, let me find out where I set you guys, and then I'll try to get caught up on some more comments.
There,
Let me
trying
get
to get caught up
shit out of the
here.
way so Steve doesn't trip over it and kill himself. I'm used to like walking around my basement is like, you ever see the dude run the tires, you know, for the training for football or whatever, they got to run through the fucking tires. So walking around my basement's like, except it's way more random than tires. Tires are at least in a predictable pattern.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Natural. Fish definitely remember the food, because Dan said he's even noticed in times that he feeds the great wizard, that when he throws things in, it just swims around, but it knows when the camera's in front that it's going to post right there in the middle, because he knows he puts that specific food in there that's going to drop and just sit there. So definitely you can see it in the fish room, how some of the creatures have a good memory.
Let's see. Just trying to get caught up.
Definitely trust.
Yeah, they definitely know what food is what, and they have foods they prefer.
Yeah, I'm really surprised a lot of your fishes didn't take to the kelp wafers from Northfin.
Yeah, they were not popular. Well, they're used to high carry. That's, you know, that's like going from fucking pate to brown swagger. You know, like, I like them both, but if I've got my choice, I'm going with the pate.
I don't think I'm a fan of either. Brown swagger's better when you fry it.
Oh, well, I don't know. I've never even thought about frying it. I either just eat it, you know, just, you know, slice it and eat it, or I make a sandwich out of it, which basically means slicing it, putting on a piece of bread, putting some mustard and cheese on it, and eating it like that. But I've never thought about cooking brown swagger.
Yeah, cook it and fry it up like scramble. Get a little crisp on the outside. Chop it up with some eggs, hot sauce.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
Well, I wouldn't do the eggs and hot sauce, but that's interesting. I might have to try that. Brown swagger is one of those things, and I always think of it. I grew up calling it brown swagger because I think my mom
liverwurst.
Yeah, didn't want to call it liverwurst because I probably wouldn't have eaten it as a kid. But when I was an adult, I found out, oh, this is liverwurst. You hear about it in the movies all the time, and I always turn my nose up. Ooh, liverwurst. And then I found out I've been eating it my whole life, and I love it. And so that's one of those things that every now and again, kind of like scrapple and Spam, every now and again, I just get a hankering for it, and I'll buy a can and I'll eat some of it. And then like the last third of the can just sits in the refrigerator. I'll throw it away because like I got my satiation. It'll be 9 months from now. I'll really want some ham, some Spam again, or some brown swagger or something. But the brown swagger, when you buy it, it's like this fucking slab. I can get smaller ones. I don't like the brand though. The brand I like is like a fucking quarter pound of the shit. So anyway,
well, I get it from the deli. Have them, I get them slice it thick.
Our Weiss doesn't have a deli anymore. Everything they do, but you can't go up to them and talk to them. Like everything just is pre-cut, pre-packaged. You just go to the deli rack and pick out what you want off the shelf.
That's strange.
You don't even talk to the deli anymore. So that's kind of a bummer. Because we like getting it chipped, or
you get to pick your thickness and all of that.
I want a third of a pound. You tell them exactly how much you want, and no, not anymore. You just got to go up and pick the fucking thing off the shelf. Let's see. Don't know how big a fish brain is, and are these sponge filters the right size for this tank? I don't know how to calculate the actual size they're supposed to be, but it's a fair amount of surface area. There's only 3 fish in there. And I also have all those plants and gravel and rocks and birds and things. So I deem it to be enough, and there doesn't seem to be any issues yet. Let's see.
I think you got snails in just about all your tanks, don't you?
Yeah. I've got snails in this tank that I've put in there. They're you can see one in the top corner if you look right up here. That thing right there, that's a big nearite snail. Or
Yeah.
no, that's not a nearite. I got
That's
the mysteries.
Mystery.
Yeah, I tried mystery snails in this tank again. If you can just see that little hint of light color right between the sponge and the plastic right there, that is my ivory mystery snail hiding on the glass back there. And there's one more there, or at least there should be. There should be 3 of them in there. And then, of course, there's I don't know if the goldfish eat snails or not, but I never really seem to have any actual like pond snails or bladder snails or anything in there, and I throw them in there all the time. So I'm guessing the goldfish eat the snails. George, hello. No, don't have any anything unplanned for tonight as far as working on any of the tanks. We're just going to go around and get everybody fed, have a chat. You guys are certainly welcome to join in with Steve and I's conversation, although I will admit when I've got actual physical company here, I pay a little less attention to the chat and I pay a little more attention to my actual real life guest.
And I do try to help out with the chat and read ahead.
All right, we're going to start the feedings with the crisps, and then we'll throw in some algae wafers afterwards. I guess we can do one little thing tonight. It'll be a very little thing, but I'll get my net out and we'll scoop some of the duckweed off of the 40.
Yeah, definitely, George. Goldfish are gluttonous. They will eat and eat and eat.
Yeah, but I didn't know. Like, do they swallow the shells? Like my loaches eat snails, but they suck the meat out of the shells, and I got like empty dead shells all over the place. Do the
Well, I would
goldfish...
imagine with them, it's probably more the eggs that they just don't let them breed.
But I know, like, a snail lives a long time. I mean, they get fucking big.
Yeah.
So where are they? Like, I throw snails in there all the time. Actually, let's do an experiment. Let's get some snails and we'll throw them in there and see what happens. I should be able to collect up a handful of big ass snails easy enough.
Yeah.
Lots
of feces
in mind to get some. Got my shrimp tank in the bathroom in here. It's got a bunch of snails on the glass.
Really wish you guys could see Mr. Fabulous in person. Like, it's such a big difference on camera and what you actually see. The vibrant colors in this fish are just incredible. And the size is ridiculous. See, I unfortunately left my wax at home. Dan's got some Super Silver Haze that he whipped up the other day. We were puffing on that. As a matter of fact, I think I might take a little whack off the thing now, Dano.
All right, everybody. I answered my own question. If you see the crushed shell right there, I tried picking one up off the bottom, off the piece of wood. It was alive. And it crushed really easily. And then this one here in my hand broke as I was picking it up as well. So that shell is like, you know, not quite the equivalent of a soft shell crab if you're a crab eater, but maybe a paper shell. So I answered my own question. I think the goldfish are just eating these and they're just dissolving the calcium, you know, in their digestive tract the same way when I eat a can of salmon, I eat the fucking spine and the bones and everything because it's a good source of calcium. You dissolve that in your stomach acid easily. I mean, think of how easily vinegar will dissolve away limestone, or, you know, that's stone, and that's vinegar. Stomach acid dissolves, you know, if you swallow a tooth.
It's way more what would you call it, corrosive than vinegar.
Yeah, if you swallow a tooth, it dissolves away before it even gets into your guts. It's just, you know, it's just calcium. So they probably are eating the shells, especially if
a tooth comes out. The tooth doesn't make it out?
Fuck no, dude.
Damn, I always thought a tooth would make it out.
No, you just
I'd
reabsorb.
never dig around to find it, but, you know.
No, you dissolve that tooth fast. It doesn't get out of your stomach. You just reabsorb that calcium.
Wow, did not know that.
Yeah, George, I can see them swallowing the shells. And now that I'm thinking about it, with the, that would be easy to just dissolve the shells if they swallowed them. So that does make a lot of sense. Hey, fish guy. We've got a little bit of hash oil from my Hawaiian Puff. And then other than that, we're just smoking actual weed. And I've got Hawaiian Puff and Super Silver Haze as per usual. And Steve's got some, what was it, Blue Skunk?
Yeah, Blue Skunk and Daydreams.
Daydreams, yeah, the Daydreams was good,
Yeah,
flavor-wise,
so
but the Blue Skunk kicked me in my fucking head. That was really good.
Yeah, I like the kind of hit.
Yeah, I got you, George. I've thought that one through and figured it out. So yeah, they are definitely eating the snails in that tank. Well, that's good to know. I always have, whenever I have excess snails, I always throw them in my tanks that have the loaches in them. But I can only throw so many snails in there. I don't want to overfeed them. And so the goldfish pond, which again explains why I never find any excess snails in my goldfish pond. And now the fancy goldfish tank, I can definitely start throwing snails in there to get rid of them too. So yay, I learned something tonight. Oh, I can't imagine the tooth makes it all the way through your digestive tract. Well, a tooth does have enamel on it, so that's a little different than just calcium. Maybe that's the reason. If you're looking it up, Ark, look up why it can make it through. Like, why doesn't a tooth dissolve? And I bet it's got something to do with the enamel.
Yeah, I believe enamel is one of the hardest things in the human body.
Yeah, it's probably the enamel, which is why we put fluoride in our water to keep your enamel nice and hard, and that protects your teeth.
It's a good thing science proves that.
All right, let's throw some algae wafers in there. Actually, you know what? Before we do the algae wafers, everybody don't move.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to try to do this without getting the fish startled. Let me find an empty bucket real quick. I got one. We'll get my gravel vac. There's a bunch of poop in the little collection area, so I want to get it while it's getting good. And if the fish get too excited and I start feeding them and they're scattering all around, they stirs it up and then I miss the opportunity. So give me half a second here and we'll get the vac going.
I love how Flo just kind of glides around the tank and everyone moves out of her way.
Goddamn right they do. She owns this tank.
Is she the oldest fish in this tank?
I don't think so.
I would imagine it'd be between her and the pleco.
Yeah, it's one of those two. She might be, now that I'm thinking about it. Time gets away from me so fast. I was looking the other day, my pond playlist came up on my own YouTube feed. So just out of curiosity, I clicked on it because I wanted to see when did I actually set it up. That was the video they were advertising. It was me, building the pond, explaining how I built it. And it was October of 22. I built this pond. So basically 4 years ago.
Wow, has it been that long?
Yeah. So I don't know how long this tank's been sitting here. This tank's probably been here 8 years now. So I have no idea who came first or what fish were in there earlier. I know the silver dollars came much later. Obviously, Mr. Fabulous came very recently. The angelfish and the shark are definitely later additions. So Flo was given to me by a viewer down in Florida. Gave me a few fish, and Flo was one of them. The other ones are gone, but I still have Flo. And I got that pleco fairly early on too, because as soon as I got a big tank, I got a 125. I've always wanted a larger pleco, and so it was probably not too long after setting this tank up that I put the pleco in there.
Yeah, that sounds about right, Ark.
I do like duckweed, but I have a love-hate relationship with it.
I absolutely despise it. It takes over too quickly.
Boom. We nailed it. Stomach acids are not strong enough to dissolve the tooth's outer surface or enamel quickly enough to break it down before it moves on.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So once again,
Well, how much? I guess what it spends about 40 minutes, 50 minutes to an hour in your stomach.
it depends. Your stomach doesn't pass things on until it's ready to move on. So whatever depends on what you've eaten.
Yeah.
When I drink my protein shakes, that probably moves on fairly quickly
Right.
because there's nothing.
Sucks everything out of it, sends it where it needs to go.
Already. Well, it's your stomach sucks some of the stuff out. Your small intestines get most of the nutrient content out, and then your large intestines sucks most of the moisture out of it. And that's where everything solidifies as the moisture is being pulled out of it. Your stomach is mostly responsible for breaking it down, churning it up and everything, dissolving it into the acid and getting it ready for the actual absorption process. Some nutrients. Alcohol goes straight through your stomach walls. Water will go straight through your stomach lining. Some sugars, some real simple stuff. But most of the digestion actually happens in your, absorption actually happens in your intestine, and then your large intestine starts pulling the moisture out of it.
It's interesting.
Michael, the very first tank I ever set up, I had SpongeBob pineapple and a couple other things. It wasn't an actual SpongeBob tank, but it was basically a SpongeBob tank. I wanted to do all of Bikini Bottom. I was going to get SpongeBob's house, Patrick's house, and Squidward's house all in a row, and then do like a little fake path or road, and then have a smaller Krusty Krab down like at the end of the road. But when I got home and my little SpongeBob pineapple was that big and I put it in my 10-gallon tank,
oh yeah,
I quickly realized, again, this is my I had zero experience with anything fish keeping, and I wanted to have that whole fucking SpongeBob scene set up in a little 10-gallon tank. And you could, but you'd have to use, miniature, inch tall. I had that's what that pineapple's around. Yeah, right here. So for anybody that's ever asking if I would set up a SpongeBob tank, the answer is definitely yes, I would. So I always keep nostalgic stuff around from my earlier days and my earlier tanks.
Yeah, I actually had the opposite effect happen to me. I was looking at a piece. It was like some mangrove root, fake plastic thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the perfect size that I need for my 29-gallon tank. Well, I get it in there, and it would have been the perfect size for like a 10-gallon tank. It just wasn't big enough. My idea was to have the roots coming down and an Amazon sword with the leaves coming up through. Well, about 3 months, that little plastic thing was floating at the top of the tank because the Amazon sword became the 29-gallon tank.
Yeah.
And completely swallowed it.
Where's that weed? Oh, here it is.
I had to, I sent it to my aunt. She put it in her pond, and I believe it's still alive. It's even shot up some flowers.
Nice.
But yeah, feel free to grab and pack anything.
Yeah, I am always, I'll leave this in here so I can just grab it while I'm in here. I always do it the other way around.
No, I'm just reading the comments.
Okay.
I'm listening and reading comments at the same time.
Here, if you look on the wall right in front of your head, you see, no, the other side. You see that white thing?
Yep.
That's my power bank.
All right.
Plug that in. I'm the other way around. I will see a rock and I'll be like, oh, that would look so good in my 55, and it doesn't look that big to me. And I bring it home and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, it just, it's touching the glass in the front and back. Or I'll bring home a piece of wood and it's just like way too big. I mean, look at the tank you're looking at. It's got a tree sticking out of the top of it.
Yeah.
I spent about an hour trying to wriggle that thing into that tank somehow, and it simply will not fit. The only thing I could do to get it into the tank, and I'll show you here in just a second. Let me set this down real quick. The only thing I could possibly do to get this piece of wood that you're looking at in the tank would be either to cut out one of the center braces, because I wanted it to lay down flat all the way in the tank. But you see where it forks right here? Well, that branch goes all the way up there. And then this branch comes all the way out here, and that hangs well over, and it's got like a piece sticking off the back. So I've basically got it jammed in there as tight as I can, and it was difficult getting all of that in, because again, it all had to go in through that one end. I can't magically pass it through the center bar there. So I really had to struggle to get that piece of wood in there, but it was worth every second of it. And that to this day is still like my pride and joy piece of woodwork that I collected and brought home. But it's a big bastard.
Yeah, it is huge.
I mean, that's a big bastard. If you were camping and looking for firewood, that'd be like a score. That'd burn for a couple of hours. You can break that up and get half the night out of it.
Hey, Cornish, how are you?
Oh, I forgot we got to put these algae wafers in there. God, the
And I agree,
ADHD
55s are definitely not the best size tank for cold escaping. Love 40s and the 75. You know what I mean? Bigger the better when it comes to fish tanks.
What are you talking about?
He was just said the 55s are the worst. Go get a 75 or a 40.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the escaping and stuff.
Well,
just because they're so skinny, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Very thin.
55 are really one of my least favorite size tanks, but it depends on what you're looking for. You know, they do serve their purpose. If you don't have a lot of space, if you're in an apartment, you want a thin footprint so you can put it against the wall, you know, but you still want a large display area. 55 is pretty good for that. You know, you get a lot of display area. If you're one of those people that doesn't really care about scaping, you're not trying to build a fucking landscape in your tank.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that just want some colored gravel on the bottom and some angelfish swimming back and forth. And the TV screen sort of style tank, that flat, wide tank that sits against the wall, is a good tank for that. That's not my style of tank. I like to build a fucking landscape in there. I want to see mountains in the distance, you know.
Right.
I want to see like a path leading off into nowhere or whatever. And you can't do that in a 55 unless you turn sideways and you're looking through the end of it.
Very limited to what you can, or depth wise.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way when I first started keeping. Well, remember when I got my, you know, I started with one of those little half-gallon corner tanks with a couple of guppies and, you know, a few snails or something. My wife had it at work and brought it home. When I suddenly realized I could get a 10-gallon tank, you know, I got a 10-gallon tank, and that seemed massive, you know. And then when the bolt of lightning hit me, and it occurred to me that there's no law that says I only can have one tank. I can have more than one tank. I went up to the Walmart and I came home with that 29, and to me that thing was massive too, you know, that step up. So when I got my first 55, that was the big leagues, baby. You know, I had my first big tank, and you know, and that's how I thought about it. I've got, you know, I'd come home with rocks like the size of that one in my fucking, you know, thinking I was going to put it in a 55, and I could barely get it in the lid, you know, and I'd be like, yeah, this is insane. And eventually I started taking a ruler with me, you know, a little tape measure, and keeping it in my pocket. And when I'd see a cool rock, I'd be like, all right. And then oh, wow, no, you know, like I had to really scale down, because when you're out in the river, you know, especially around, you know, what it looks like around here. Yeah, everything's all rocky and boulders and big fucking rock abutments sticking out of the ground. And in scale, it does, you know, these little rocks in the river look small, but it's 15 inches across. And, you know, you can't put something like that in a 55, not if you don't want it resting on the glass somewhere, which I don't.
Right. Well, yeah, there's been a lot of times where I've paddled over a nice little stump that would look great in a tank, but is probably a freaking oak tree from before the reservoir.
I see stuff like all that all the time. I was looking for woodwork today when I was hiking back and forth through the dude, there's a patch back there that when I walk up on it, it's got like a bunch of sticks and leaf debris, like it's a curve this way. So it's deep on the outside, but all the sediment settles on the inside, and it's all that like that mushy, you sink into it and bubbles come out of it and all that stuff. Dude, when I walk up on that, crayfish come out of that and go down into the deep water like fucking cockroaches when the lights come on, dude. Wow. Like 100 of them come out of there. Again, I haven't looked at the video, but I mean, I'm pointing my head straight down so you can see them. So hopefully it comes out. I've been doing this long enough. I kind of know how to, you know, get stuff on video. So hopefully it turned out. So again, I will put something out there, at least my adventure up and down the stream will be worth having a look at.
I'd like to set up a crayfish tank.
I would too. I really like crayfish tanks. All right, everybody, I'm going to do a hit of the blue skunk right now.
Buckle up. Nice hit.
As I said, I didn't think I made that too big. That was about the perfect size. I just killed it without killing myself in the process.
I do like the 20 longs, Cornish. That is a good size.
Yeah, 20 longs are good tanks. I tell you what, Steve and I were talking about curing the weed and whatnot earlier tonight. Or was I thinking that in my head? But were we talking about curing the weed and the difference it makes?
I mean, we've talked about it. I don't think we covered it tonight.
Maybe I was just thinking about it then. Anyway, I was thinking about curing weed tonight. And one of the real differences, like my non-cured stuff that I'm smoking right now is fine with me. Like, it is better if it's cured, but it's fine if it's not. Maybe I was talking about this in a live stream there. I swear I was saying this out loud to somebody. Anyway, now that I'm hitting on your weed, like it's real weed, the smoothness is kind of what I forgot about. Like mine is definitely a little harsh on the throat compared to once it's cured. That all smooths out and it goes down a lot cleaner. That is really, really nice. Actually, let me put that somewhere. I don't care if the bong falls in, but I don't want the weed to fall in. But that blue skunk is really nice. All right, everybody, let's move on to the next tank. I don't know anything about Marvel angelfish. Yeah, I don't know what a Marvel angelfish is unless they're actually, Marvel Studios is now marketing fucking fish, and that would not surprise me in the slightest. Let me give you a look at my pleco there for a minute. I'm actually going to turn my magic app on, and we'll zoom in on the pleco a little bit. We don't get a really good look at that one very often.
He was out on the log earlier just hanging out.
Yeah, he's always on top of the log when I turn the lights on in the morning, and he scrambles down underneath of it really quickly. I'm probably overfeeding him a little bit. The log's getting a little bit, of course, he moves right as sorry, everybody. I don't know why it goes really super tight like that. He moves right as I get the camera ready finally. But you can get a little bit of a look at his fin. Let me turn my camera light on and see if that lights him up at all. Not at all, not one bit. Well, anyway, we tried. So the last time I measured him or her, whatever it is, hasn't been that long ago, a few months maybe, but it was over 12 feet and it was lying right on the front. So I got a good look from tail, all the way to, from nose to tail. And I got a really good look at it.
Smoking some really good stuff if you measured a 12-foot fish.
When we use the freedom units over here, they're different than metric. All right, let's get the stuff out of this tank first. Let me go grab my net out of the other room. I am smoking some good stuff. One thing I do know, at least I'm pretty sure I was saying to Steve before we started, was how when you smoke the same stuff over and over again, I found this when I was drinking too. Even if I was drinking like straight vodka, that's what I drank all the time. And then I'd go somewhere and have a few beers. Like I'd feel more drunk off of a few beers than I would off of a glass of vodka. And when you bring weed over that's different than what I'm used to smoking, it just hits me so much harder and different. It's weird.
Well, I get the same way through different ways to intake it. Like if I'm smoking a lot of grass, I'll get used to that grass high. And then when I'm like, oh, I ain't took a dab in a couple of days and smack a dab, I'm like, wow, it blows my mind. And then I'll like, oh yeah, I'll just take a couple dabs and then I won't smoke as much grass or anything like that. And be like, oh, I'll smoke a joint to myself. And then that'll wax my mind because I haven't smoked it in grass form in a week or so, But I go back and forth.
Well, there was a point where I went, I don't know, 5 years without actually smoking weed. I swore I'd never smoke again once I discovered vaping it and, hitting hash oil. especially making my own hash oil, growing my own weed and whatnot. But over time, I wound up going back to smoking just for necessity. I couldn't afford, I had to make what I had last me as long as possible. So I had to smoke it, which, does make it last a lot longer than when I make it into hash oil. It goes really quickly when I do that. I can make an ounce of weed into hash oil, and that's gone in a day and a half or 2 days if that's all I'm hitting on.
Right.
If I smoke an ounce,
No,
I
it
can get
takes
a
a
week
lot
out
of
of it.
time to smoke
Yeah,
an ounce
I can
of
get
weed.
I can get a week out of smoking an ounce. So I was doing that just for that purpose.
Especially if, like, out of each ounce, if you took a quarter and made it goo, and then stretch the weed with the goo like you do.
Well, that's what I do now. I don't know how well you can see this over top of the tower, but that's a pretty good.
Want me to kick this on? You going back in here?
No, don't worry about it. So what I do now when I grow a plant, until I've got it, until I got as much as I possibly can use again, then I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. But right now, when I do a plant, I take the good buds off the top and some of the nicer buds off the outside edges, and I trim them up for smoking. And all the smaller stuff and trimmings and all that gets made into hash oil. And then anything like reclaim or any of the lower quality stuff that winds up turning like brown, it's like a dark color, doesn't have that amber color to it, that gets used for soaking on my bowls and making my bowls last longer. So I definitely have a system. All right, everybody, that's the dispersion of the duckweed. So let's get back to feeding the 40. And you can actually see into the tank a little bit now. All right, what are we going to put in there tonight? Let's do the Vibra-Bites. I haven't put Vibra-Bites in here in a while. I've been doing either the crisps or the granules just because they're a lot less expensive than the Vibra-Bites are. But I try to do Vibra-Bites at least 3 or 4 nights a week. That's the good shit.
Yeah, my fish seem to took a liking to the bug bites, the small granules, slow sinking.
Yeah, I looked at bug bites and I had them recommended to me, and I don't remember what my conclusion was, but I thought about. I think I came to the conclusion that like bug bites, Vibra bites, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Well,
nutritionally,
I think the Vibra Bites has the color enhancing stuff, whereas the Bug Bites is just
the bug bites are designed for fish that are more insectivorous, whereas the Vibra bites are designed to look more like bloodworms in the water. That's almost the only difference I can figure.
Be the same formula.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I look nutritionally.
No,
it's a little different. It's not exactly the same because again, one's geared towards fish that are insectivore, so it's dietarily adjusted for them. And then fish that eat worms and meaty stuff, it's dietarily, probably higher protein. Well, I don't know. Bugs have a lot of protein too.
Yeah, a lot of protein in bugs.
Anyway, you get the idea. But it's how it floats in the water, how it behaves, that sort of thing. Plus, and again, when I looked at the, for my discus, nutritionally, I'd be perfectly fine feeding either one. But because I like the way the Vibra bites move in the water, and that's like a natural prey for that kind of fish, I've just always used the Vibra bites. I've never even tried the bug bites. What are they, like a granule, or are they?
Yeah, the ones I use are small granule, slow sinking.
See, that's why
I put those on the top, and then I have a larger granule that's just like a, I think Omega, whatever brand.
Yeah, I've got Tetra granules,
but it's like the medium small size. It's a little bigger, and those Tetras just dust those things.
My granules are granules. They're not like little round pellets. I'll pour some out in my hand. So that's what my granules look like. It really is like, it looks like a really, really coarse grind coffee.
Yeah.
And they do swirl around the water. And this is just my Tetra color enhancing granules. Similar to
I have the Omega small pellet version of that.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the slow sinking granule bug bites, but it's a smaller grind than that is.
Right. Well, these sort of swirl in the water, but they also sink fairly quickly.
Yeah, these are a slower sinking.
Yeah. So
deal. They seem to stay in that water column for quite a while. The
Yeah,
tetras just swarm it.
some of them go right down, some of them swirl around a little
Yeah,
more. The vibrobites really swirl around in the water. They tend not to really sink at all.
I know my Gambusia love that. Like they go nuts. Like they're just so crazy on the surface.
All right, we're going to move on to the next tank here. So I use the granules occasionally. Remember, I have fish that feed from the surface. I've got fish that feed mostly from the water column, and then I got fish that will feed from the bottom. So I got to make sure all those habitats get food. And these different types of food and the way they behave in the water and all that stuff really is important depending on what tank I'm feeding, how long it's been since I've fed something that was really focused on sinking versus floating, which again is why I like the vibrobites. They kind of hit all the bases, but I do feed with the granules occasionally because the granules tend to be more bottom favoring. They sink a little faster, and that way I know my catfish and everybody at least twice or 3 times a week is definitely getting.
Me, that's what the pellets do. They're and I hit that second. I get the the frenzy of the smaller things swirling around, and then I just drop a healthy pinch across the top.
See, these are barely, most of these will never even get to the bottom because of the way these tetras are going to devour them up. But watch when I throw I'll throw some granules in there and watch how the granules behave.
You might have to try these vibrobites.
So watch how these granules behave, and a lot of the vibrobites are still floating on the surface. So you will get some floating on the surface with the granules. But look how quickly they're just sort of dropping down through the water. Not super fast, so all these guys are going to hit it on the way through, but a lot of it's going to get down to the bottom. Look, there's already stuff down there for the catfish while these guys are still hitting on it, and there's still some floating on the surface.
Right, you're hitting all the levels at once.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff is important when you are thinking about your fish in your tank and different habitats they occupy, etc. Oh, and I do have one thing I want to talk about to one of my viewers who I'm pretty sure is watching, but I don't know for sure, but I'll get to that in a second. Let me get caught up on some comments.
Oh, I haven't checked them either.
Oh, marble angelfish. Hey, Robert. I don't know a lot about marble angelfish. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, unless it's the... what are those really expensive ones that just look like regular old angelfish? They're just bigger.
Giant angelfish?
No, the fucking high dollar ones that are just brown that I've never seen the point in.
Wild type?
No, you get the wild type at somebody knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, there's that kind of angelfish, and then there's domestic bred, whether it's a marble angelfish or the koi or a panda. They're all the same, the care is the same. It's just a different color, maybe a slightly different size and shape angelfish, but it's just an angelfish. What the fuck is the name of those angelfish I'm trying to think of?
I have no idea.
You'll know it when you hear it.
I don't know much about angelfish.
Yeah, Zini, but you give it the old non-college try when you're trying to spell stuff. I always figure out what you mean. I've used medicated food before, Dade. Not to a lot of success. I had ivermectin flakes, and the fish ignored them. They did not want to eat. They did not want to eat that shit at all. And I really didn't need it anyway. It was when my clown loaches were withering away and getting skinny, and I said I threw the book at them and tried everything I could think of, and the ivermectin flakes to get any parasites out of their guts was one of the things I tried. Whether they ever ate them or not, I don't know, but they all died. The end.
Yeah, I've never tried any of the medicated foods. I just usually go with trusty ICX, or if that don't fix it, a little bit of salt, heat. Whatever.
Well, ICX won't do anything to an internal parasite, and these fish were just withering away and getting skinnier and skinnier. Oh. And I thought they had some kind of gut parasite, I was just throwing everything at them. I tried all the external stuff, and they didn't have any visual. They were just wasting away. They were getting skinny. And of course, the common belief is that there's some sort of loach disease out there that, you know, but if you, it's some gut disease.
Oh, the wasting disease.
I don't know. It's possible, but so many people that rely on these ideas that like shit lays dormant until I've had this loach for 4 years, and then suddenly, like, where did this gut parasite come from? Has it been in there its whole life and suddenly woke up and started affecting the fish after several? Like, I just don't buy stuff like that. It has to acquire a gut. You know, it has to acquire a gut parasite. And, you know, unless the gestation period on it is 4 years before it starts wasting, you know, the thing grew like a beast and was 6 inches or 8 inches long. And then just within months, just withered away, got skinny as fucking died. Every loach I've ever had, every clown loach I've ever had has done that. Which is why I've given up on clown loaches. I love clown loaches. I think they're amazing. Awesome.
Awesome.
And once they stay, and I don't even mean huge, but, you know, once they're 7, 8 inches, man, they're fucking fantastic. Every one I've ever had is either, I got three things that happen. Either they die fairly, you know, within a few months, 6 months, or they seem to stay the same size without really growing very much at all. And then after about 3 or 4 years, they get the wasting and then they die. Or they grow like fucking crazy for 3 or 4 years and they get about that big and then they get the wasting and die. But the end result is always that after 3 or 4 years, my clown loaches have always just withered away and died. Wow. And I've never been able to not have that happen or get on top of it once it starts. It's just, you just watch them wither away and die. And I don't know what to do about it. So anyway,
one of the most impressive clown loach tanks I've ever seen. It was a whole bunch of years ago on Corey's channel, Aquarium Co-op. He had this, I forget how many, but it was a generous amount of clown loaches and an even more ridiculous amount of tiger barbs. And the way that tank moved with all that striped pattern, it just looked incredible.
Did you ever go out to the store that I do not name in Frederick?
I haven't. I keep wanting to ask you off the clock what the name is so I can look it up. But I looked it up and there's not many to choose from out there, so I kind of pieced it together.
He had a clown loach. He had a pair of them in one of his tanks that were not for sale. The smaller one was about 10 inches and the big one was almost a foot. And it's fucking amazing looking at a clown loach that's that. I mean, it was that big around, dude. Like, wow. you would love to catch something like that. You know, it'd be pulling drag off your line if you hooked into something as big as this clown loach. It was massive, and they weren't for sale. They were just in a show tank.
I think what was her name? Bertha.
Down at House of Tropicals. Yeah. What was her name?
Bertha, Gertrude, something.
Now that you're putting the other names in my head, that's another one that I can't think of. Altum angelfishes. That's the word.
Altum,
yeah. The Altum angelfishes. All right, everybody. I'm going to do another bong hit. This time I'm doing the, what was it called? Blueberry or something or other?
What?
No.
Blue skunk or daydreams.
Daydream, that's what it was. I was thinking blue dream, not daydream. And then I had the blueberry skunk. I was close.
Hey, well, if you put a little bit of one in there and a little bit of the other, you can have a blue dream. Or a dayberry. Or a day skunk. Sorry.
Or a blue skunk.
Yeah.
Or is it called blue skunk? Are we back to the original?
Right, I think that was the original.
I think it is blue skunk, actually. Never mind. Anyway, before I get distracted again, I have a friend that made a comment to me the other day. So if you're watching, you can contact me later and let me know the answer to this question. But they commented to me that they had to make an emergency run to the weed store. And I got, like, I don't know, maybe we've had conversations in the past where you've commented on weed and stuff. In fact, we probably have now that I'm thinking about it. But my brain is so fucking frazzled at this point. I really don't remember any of that. And for whatever reason, when you said you were making an emergency trip to the weed store, I was thinking, he smokes? Like, you just don't seem like the kind of guy that smokes to me. I just always kind of thought you didn't, or unless we've talked about how you did before. I don't know. Everything's always new and fascinating to me. Anyway, I just found it odd. The point I'm getting at is knowing you and how you like to tinker with stuff and try things and do projects. Like, why do you go to the weed store? Like, why do you not grow your own weed? I can't imagine you don't grow your own weed. That seems like it'd be right up your alley. Anyway, that's what I was getting to. Diamond tetras probably get a little smaller than black skirts. Black skirts don't get really big, but they can get bigger than a lot of people think. They can get, 3 inches, 3.5 inches long. The diamonds don't quite get that big.
Emperors don't get quite as big as the black skirts either. I'll compare them to the Buenos Aires in size.
Yeah, the black skirts actually are one of the larger tetras, I think, now that I'm thinking about it. All right, now I'm going to do a dab off of my Hawaiian Puff hash oil.
Which was delicious, by the way.
Did you hit on the brown stuff or the golden stuff?
I hit a little bit of one, a little bit of the other.
You should have just done one or the other. You should have just hit on the gold stuff, hit the good stuff.
It's all good.
Well,
gets the job done.
Yeah, but there's good stuff, and then there's good stuff.
I'm a little upset that I forgot mine. Like I
Me too.
Thought it was in the car.
You forgot your joint and you forgot your dab.
Right. Well, I know where the joint is. The joint is sitting on the tools in the garage. My dad's garage. It would have been a nice doobie. If I remember.
Yeah. Steve shows up, unzips his bag. He's like, "Oh, you want to smoke a joint? Here, smell this." And he hands me a joint tube, plastic tube. And I popped it up and took a big old sniff of it. And I was like, "Well, that's interesting." I assumed it was supposed to be this like delicious smelling joint or something. And to me, it smelled like a half burnt joint, that half smoked smell. And I was like, all right. And I handed it back to him. And then turns out, oops, it was. He looked in there. And I even, when I looked in, I was, man, it's a little joint.
Right. That's why I dumped it out. And we were about to spark it anyway. I'm like, that is not the joint I was looking for.
Because the burnt end was facing down. And so the tip was still sticking up. And when I looked in the tube, I saw the tip. And I thought, man, that tip's awfully far down inside that fucking tube. And so I just gave it back to you. Like, you know what you're doing. It's your joint. And it turns out it is was it a half burnt joint or was that just the butt?
That was a half-ish burnt joint.
Well, we can finish it if you want. I got no objection to
that. Yeah. So it's probably about a third.
Yeah, I know you always save your paper butts and don't throw them away, so I didn't know if it was just the paper or there's any smokable weed left on it. I smoke the weeds.
As do I.
Well, technically, Dade, I have a Swiss Army knife on my keychain right now. It's not the big full-size job you're talking about, but they make a very, very popular model that has some basics. It's got a knife, a little nail file, a little pair of scissors. One other thing, maybe it's got 2 little blades on it or something, but it's really small. It's a little pen knife, and I have it on my keychain. I use it all the time. It's really handy. The big catfish is the striped Raphael.
And me.
Yeah, lemon tetras are really nice. I've always wanted lemon tetras. Whenever anybody asks me what the, fish I'd like to get someday, first thing that comes to my mind is lemon tetras. I saw them long ago at the House of Tropicals and just fell in love with them. I then saw the diamond tetras and, I got over it.
Diamond sparkle is really awesome. But as about the Swiss Army knife, I can't see, and I'm not good at this, but I use this lighter, bro.
You can turn the light on.
What button do I hit?
There's a switch on the back of the light on top of it.
I honestly don't want to touch the camera with as sensitive as the things can be. But anyway, if you saw it, it's a lighter bro. It's basically a mini Swiss Army knife. It's got a blade, a poker, a pair of scissors.
Yeah, but
and
there's a lot
stainless
of
steel
things out there
case.
that have multiple tools on. That doesn't make them Swiss Army knife.
Right. Well, Swiss
It's
Army
got to be,
style.
yeah, it's got to be made by
style.
Victorinox. I've got an actual Victorinox Swiss Army knife on my keychain.
I've only had one legit Swiss Army knife in my life. I've had a lot of multi-tools, multi-bladed, similar things, but never, only the one.
Scholars Retreat, how are you? We're just smoking the tail end of a joint that Steve had, and I don't know what it is, but it's pretty good. I was kind of got carried away and did 3 or 4 hits before I handed it back to him.
It's either one of your favorite strains or garlic cocktail.
Well, I'm not getting a lot of garlic.
Then it's one of your favorite Alaskan Thunderfucks.
Yeah, I can taste the fuck in it. I can't taste any garlic though. Or is that the thunder I'm tasting?
It might be the thunder. It definitely does not taste like a baked Alaska.
I've never had baked Alaska.
You eat a light dinner and get one of those, because that is a hefty dessert, man. Like, that is a no joke thing.
I don't even know what it is actually.
It's like a cake, pie, ice cream, mousse, custard.
Oh,
thing.
I always thought it had something to do with like crab meat or something like that.
No, it's like a dessert type of thing.
Man, that joint packed a wallet. I'm telling you, man, that roach. I know
Well,
people
if it
don't.
bagged a wallop, it probably is the Alaska, because it was like 31%.
Yeah, and that
The
name,
garlic was
name
like
is probably apt.
24%.
But the last third of a roach, you can get as high off of that as you do off of the first 2/3 of it. Now, I'll grant you, the flavor's better in the earlier parts of the joint, and then the rise is smoother because you're doing less. Man, by the time you get that thing down to a roach, it's got so much shit all gooped up in there and all that resin and everything that you're smoking. A fucking roach packs a wallop.
I had a buddy, he probably still does to this day. He had this tin that he would put all the roaches in.
Mm-hmm.
Once the tin was full, he'd get a nice, flavored blunt wrap and would empty all the roaches and roll one big stupid size blueberry, apple, whatever flavor he picked, bubble gum, just to mask that roachy taste. And some of them actually turned out surprisingly good.
Yeah.
The ridiculous amount of chemical flavor they add to the tobacco leaf.
The catfish is about, I'm going to say 8 to 10 inches long and maybe a little bit bigger around than a golf ball. I always say about as big as a lacrosse ball, but I'm from Maryland and I just assume everybody knows how big a lacrosse ball is. If you don't, it's smaller than a tennis ball, but it's bigger than a golf ball. And that's about how big around that striped Raphael is. He's a big fish. And I got 2 55-gallon tanks. In fact, we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to still skip the 29. I don't have a lot going on in there. The light is, can you unzoom? Just put your fingers on the little square on my phone and unexpand. There you go. Perfect. So the 55 still only has half the lights lit, and it's kind of hard to see into. There's only my angelfish and one other fish that we can really see in there. So we're going to skip this tank. We'll get back to the Great Wizard for the grand finale. And tonight we can actually see into
Honey
Faces
gourami all
tanks.
day, Michael.
Got this 10-gallon tank all nice and cleaned up. You can see the schooling fish. So you can see how that's 2 different tetras in there, and they're mostly over here where there's more water flow. It's the black skirt tetras and a school of brilliant rasporas. The rasporas are the larger ones with the sort of reddish tip in their tail, and the black tetras are the other ones. Let's try to zoom in on them a little bit. So you see how readily they school together. They school fairly tightly. And, you know, at a glance, you'd almost not really notice that that's two separate species of fish. And they're completely different groups of fish. That's, you know, Rasboras and Tetras. And they school together that easily. And No Face just made a little cameo. That was nice of him.
Dude, he is slowly growing more and more face.
Yeah, he's definitely face now. So, all right, let me go throw some food at them. And I always feed this tank. Well, not always, but 90% of the time, I feed this tank Fiber Bites because of No Face. Doesn't really necessarily like the other food that I put in there, but he loves his Fiber Bites.
Not a big fan of the barbs, but I would have to go with the tiger barb because when you get a whole bunch of them, as long as, you know, there's nothing else in the tank that they can pester to death, I think a whole bunch of tiger barbs look incredible.
Yeah, it depends on what you want. If you're looking for, like Steve said, if they're going to be the only fish in the tank, I agree, go with the tiger barbs. But if it's going into a community tank, then I would definitely stick with the cherry barbs. Cherry barbs are beautiful, actually. I do like the cherry barbs.
Yeah, they are really awesome fish.
I'm not going to chase him around the tank anymore. I'll just zoom out and you can see him swimming around. Cherry barbs seem to be the overall winner.
Yeah, definitely are the overall winner.
So again, the scenario Steve painted with, you know, if it's only going to be the tiger barbs, because I've tried tiger barbs before and I didn't have a lot of luck with them. They were aggressive and nippy. I don't care if they're nippy with each other. They're kind of built for that, but they always nipped every other fish I had. I did try the experiment with the angelfish. Everybody said, don't ever put them with angelfish. And I thought, well, let's find out for myself just because everybody says it. Kind of thought it was a bad idea. So I kept a really close eye on it. And it lasted like a day and a half. And I was like, hey, you definitely don't want to keep angelfish with fucking tiger barbs. That was a bad idea.
Yeah,
that was definitely a case of I should have listened to what everybody says.
And that's kind of what I like about emperors, because they are one of the feistier fish. Like they don't school much. They kind of do their own thing. But
super silver haze, if you want to.
Occasionally, two males will just be like, "Hey, I want to spar for a little bit." Then they'll do their little circle dance, circle this way, that way.
Cheers, everybody.
Do a lot of flaring out. But as much as they chase each other, they don't chase anything else in the tank. That aggression is just limited towards each other.
Dude, this is so much harsher on the throat than that stuff you've got. Man, it's good. It sends the elevator up, but rough on the throat. Definitely needs to smooth out with the curing process.
Gold barb and mascara barbs. I am not familiar with those.
All right. Do you have to work tomorrow, Steve?
Yes, I do.
Are you going to get out of here soon?
Oh, shit. It's 9:15.
Yeah, the evening has gone by fast.
Yes, it has. All right, let me gather my things here.
Yeah, I like the rosy barbs. I had some neon rosy barbs in my pond, but I think they're gone now. Yeah, I've never had the gold barbs. I like the cherry barbs. I like the rosy barbs. Again, I had the neon rosy barbs, and I had the tiger barbs once. And really, really early on, when I first started keeping fish, I had 5 of the emerald green tiger barbs, which I think are gorgeous. But unfortunately, they were really aggressive, or I don't remember what the issue was, but I remember taking them back to the store because I just couldn't keep them. Presumably they were too aggressive. And that was, you know, they were still the size of a quarter. They hadn't even, begun to grow into their full size. They were still little tiny store-sized fish. So once Steve says his goodnights and gets out of here because he's packing up now.
Do you want these?
If you want to leave them here, I won't say no. But I mean, it's your weed, dude.
I'll smack one more dab for the road.
Yeah, knock
and then
yourself
you can
out.
just have those.
Do you want any of that Hawaiian Puff or?
Actually, yeah. You want to fill my bowl?
The Hawaiian Puff's on the in there in that pill case.
All right, cool. I'll go fill that real quick. I got a bowl.
I'm more of a bluefish fan than a redfish.
One fish, two fish.
I know. I was just gonna say that. One fish, two fish, redfish, bluefish. One fish is named Blue Pill. What are you talking about? Both in one of those conjoined betta tanks? Oh, you're talking about the redfish and the bluefish in one tank. I got you. I thought you were talking about my tanks. I was like, I thought you thought that I had two betta fish in tanks that were sitting next to each other. And I didn't have a divider or something between them. I don't know what the hell I was reading into your comment there. I'm really, really high though. I've been just doing nonstop smoking since Steve got here. What time did you get here? Like 6:30? Quarter to 7?
Yeah, I would imagine. I know it was in the 6 o'clock hour. Probably closer to 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was well after. I think you texted me around 6 o'clock saying you were leaving.
Yeah.
So it was probably 6:30, quarter to 7.
Like 48 minutes from my dad's to here. So I stopped and picked up juice, so it was probably like really.
And you did some yard touring with the missus before I got outside.
Yeah.
So Steve got to see the actual yard tour today. I did post a yard tour video. My members have already seen it if they want, and it'll get posted publicly tomorrow. And one of these days, I'm going to shoot a damn video about a bike. I got over 200 miles on it now.
You crossed the 200 mark?
203 miles.
Congratulations.
So, again, I got not a complaint to say about it. Oh, I fixed my brakes today, too. Well, the rear brake still squeals a little bit, but nothing like it did before. I looked at a few videos.
Like a shrill to it?
It was what?
Like getting a shrill?
Oh, my God. It was so loud before. Just the rear brake. The front's fine. So I tinkered with it a little bit today. I didn't really completely disassemble it, but I did actually adjust it so it's tighter and I don't have so much play in my brake handle. But I took the caliper off and I pulled, the pads are spring loaded and only one pad presses against the other.
Right.
So I pushed it out and I sprayed alcohol all behind it. It was all dirty coming out. So that helped. And I tightened the cable, did all that, tightened the caliper back on, and it still get a little tiny bit of squeal if I really squeeze on it. But even that, it's not a lot. So I fixed it good enough as far as I'm concerned. Right. Compared to what it was, this is fine. You could hear me a block away. I was almost embarrassed to use my rear brake. It was so loud. So I did clean that out a little bit and tinker with it. And if I can figure it out with just a couple minutes, again, the toolkit that comes with it gives you all the tools you need to do everything on the bike. So again, I'm loving the shit out of that thing. I look for excuses to go out and ride it around. Oh, and while Steve's doing his goodnight hit, I'll tell you the story I told him. Speaking of excuses to ride it around, I did go out one more time today to set the minnow trap, as I said, and I decided I was going to take the long way around. And as I was driving up the back road, going all the way around the block, drove past a house that had what I thought was a piece of trash line in their front yard. And as I drove by, I noticed that it was a $5 bill. So I slammed the brakes on, and before I could even come to a stop, I saw another $5 bill. So I pulled over and I walked back and I did my duty as a good neighbor, and I picked up the trash that was lying on the ground in the neighborhood and put it in my pocket and did a quick scan around to make sure I didn't miss any other pieces of trash lying on the ground. And then I got the fuck out of Dodge before anybody came out and asked me what I was doing in their yard. So I scored $10 on my ride today. So that was pretty good. And when I got home, the missus had just finished the cake batter, so I was just in time to lick the bowl. So it was an awesome day.
Epic timing on
That
two
was
accounts.
perfect timing on both times. And when I picked up the money, when I continued on down the street, there was a couple just leaving their house, walking the dog like diagonally across their yard. So they were clearly walking out to the street to walk down the road. There's no way they wouldn't have seen those two $5 bills laying there. They would have literally walked over them.
Yeah.
If I was a minute later, they wouldn't have been there. I would have just ridden on by and not even known about it.
And then your timing would have been off.
Yeah,
You
but
would have
as it
missed the
was,
bowl.
I got $10. So that was awesome. So, all right, everybody. Once Steve rolls out, we'll move on. I guess we ought to move on at least to get the discus tank fed. But I do want to talk about nitrates again tonight, and I do mean that unironically. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he said some stuff about denitrification. And so got my whole head swirling around on that because Father Fish, of course, came up. Dr. Novak came up. And so I think it's worth having a little chat about that, whether you were thinking about it or not. I have been. And so if you want to hear me talk about nitrates and denitrification and water changes and all that kind of stuff, stick around. Once Steve gets out of here, we'll get into that eventually.
I believe I have all my things. Let me double check. I put your charger back.
You got your man bag.
Got my man bag.
Did you get that vape juice I gave you, the blueberry stuff, if you want it?
Yes. Blueberry vape juice. And good night, everybody. I'll be listening through my ride home. And if you're still live, I'll definitely keep the stream, let the stream know I made it. Night all.
God, I hope I'm not still awake and still live streaming by the time you get out.
It's only about an hour.
I know. Like I said, it's already like 9:30, dude. So, yeah.
All right, Dan.
All right, Steve. Thanks for coming by today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. All right, everybody. And this is no longer a Steve and Dandalf show. Dandalf's flying solo the rest of the night. Let me put some weed and stuff away. Bye. Back is friggin' killing me. We got another lotus flower in the process of opening. It'll probably be another day or so. I'm definitely not going to shoot another video of it. In fact, I'm probably not going to shoot another video of the lotus flower for a while. Not only did the first one I posted not get very many views, but the law of diminishing returns. Every one I've posted subsequently has gotten even less views, and so clearly nobody's particularly interested in seeing me post videos about my tiger lotus. Am I on the camera or not? I can't see the. No, I'm not. I am sitting down here at the end of the tank. If you can see my hand waving. Hello, everybody. All right, that feels really good to sit down for a minute. All right, let me see. Everybody's got a lot to say about him, Scholar's Retreat, except for me. Well, I can say a lot about him, but I don't actually talk shit about him. We disagree on a lot, but we also agree on a lot of things. All right, let me get caught up on some of these comments. Well, this conversation is not going to answer any of your questions. I'm going to be talking about something pretty different. I don't know. Maybe it will. You can listen in. Did Steve forget something? You had it plugged in the other room charging. Is it still in there? Told you to put it on your fucking necklace, dude. I don't remember you hitting on it in here anytime recently. All right, we got an emergency, everybody. Steve's vape is missing. Yeah, but there it is, right there on top of the bucket. Yay.
That I just looked at.
I'm glad you weren't down at the end of town before you realized it wasn't. I'm assuming you sat down in your car.
Well, I heard the thumbs up. And I was like, oh, that's my vape. And then I went reaching for it, and no, it was my phone. And I'm like, oh shit.
That's so lucky, dude, because you would have gotten up to the stoplight or something and reached for your vape to take a hit.
I would have been 83 before I was like, oh no, it's in my pocket. And I just threw it.
Oh, that would have fucking been tragic.
Well, I would've waited for that.
We're what the fuck, everybody? Oh, are we back? All right. I have been having internet issues, and my I just figured out today. I'm not going to get into a big story about it. I got to look into my uninterruptible power source because it's not working. And so today I just unplugged it and I plugged it straight into the wall. So every time I have a little power fluctuation, there is a possibility that we could just lose the live stream, because if my router shuts down, it takes like 15 minutes for it to come back online. I won't be here that long. I don't know what that was. We went away for a minute and then we came back. So I don't know if you guys heard the drama with Steve there. But he went to leave, and when he sat in his car, he heard a thump, and he thought his vape had fallen out of his pocket, and so he patted around for it and realized it was his phone that made the thump, and he actually didn't have his vape, and so he was able to come back in and find it before driving 10 miles down the road and then realizing he didn't have it, which again would have been tragic. I think he's got a spare at the house, but still, like you said, he would have had to drive all the way home before he could have taken a puff. Let's see. Plants absorb oxygen through their leaves the same way they absorb the carbon dioxide. At night, they absorb oxygen, and during the day, they actually give off oxygen, and it's basically through the same means, just through pores in their leaves. All right, I'm going to take a swig of my iced tea, then we'll move on to the final tank, because I really am crashing out here. At least not what the kids mean by crashing out these days. I'm getting tired, and I'm really, really high. So I'm going to be sitting down really soon, and we're going to put the camera on the Great Wizard, and we're going to talk about nitrates and denitrification. I can probably do it without being too wordy about it. So let's get the wizard fed, and then we're not going to spend a lot of time doing that. I'll sit down in front of the camera while we chat. We'll put the camera back over by the goldfish tank. I often wonder if I could do something as simple as that to make my live streams more popular, because I think about it from other people's points of view, and you all can give me some feedback if you'd be helpful enough. I think in three-dimensionalness because I'm very aware of what the camera's pointing at, but I'm in the room and like with Steve here, I'm walking around, I'm talking, I'm looking at different stuff. Yes, we hear you. So, I don't really think about the fact that you guys have not only a static view for long periods at a time, but you also don't ever really see me. I'm just a disembodied voice talking to you and whatnot. And so that can either not necessarily be off-putting or possibly even off-putting, but it's not the same as when you tune into somebody's live stream and you see them on camera talking to you. It's just a different kind of vibe. And so I think if I probably spent more time in front of the camera rather than just walking around the room, chatting with everybody, we might get better viewer retention, get a few more people watching. All right, I also have to feed my shrimp tanks, and we got to feed to 29 because we skipped over that. I always got to remember, just because I skip it on camera doesn't mean I can actually skip over feeding it. So that's fed. I'm going to cut in front of you here for a second. And we're going to feed the shrimp tanks. And tonight we're just throwing the crisps in the shrimp tanks because, again, saving money on food. You'd like to feed the shrimps the high carry algae wafers, but they're pretty expensive compared to these crisps. Let me run upstairs and let the stupid cat out before he wakes my wife up. He wants to go out and he's not going to shut the hell up until he gets there. Come on. I don't know where he went. Come on. Meow, meow. All right, there you go. I know where he went. He heard me coming up the steps, and he just assumed, since he'd been standing in the kitchen screaming his head off, that I was coming up to tell him to shut the hell up and chase him down the hallway, which is right and proper, and he had coming to him. But tonight, I was relenting and just letting him out so he would not bother me or the missus. But he didn't know that. He just heard me coming, so he ran for it. He ran down the hallway. So once he heard me calling for him and the door opened, he came back. He went to the other door, though. He went to the wrong door. All right, Dade. Damn, Robert. Now you're scaring me. Guppies prefer hard water over soft water. All of the live bears prefer harder water over soft water, and a lot of the live bears actually thrive in brackish water or even salt water. Mollies will do salt water. So we'll give the fish a few minutes. I'm going to do another bong hit or two over here. And I promise you, we will get to talking about the nitrate. But like I said, I don't think I'm going to go into a huge, long diatribe. At least, I don't know. You know how I am. Once I get going, I'll probably be flailing my arms around and yelling and hollering. Get myself all fucking worked up again. I can get pretty worked up over the whole nitrate thing. Actually, it depends on whether I talk about the science behind it or I talk about the fish keeping community's attitude about it, because that's where I'll get worked up. The science doesn't bother me. It's just stupid people. And my God, is the world full of them. So for anybody that doesn't know, I don't know if we've got any new viewers. This is a dinosaur Bashir or Polypterus. I think of it as a Polypterus. And its name is the Great Wizard Queequeg. Technically, I believe it's actually Qui-Quay-Quad, but I always say Qui-Quay-Quad for some reason. We're friends. I can call it that. That's my nickname for it. You all have to call it Qui-Quay-Quad till you get to know it better. You've passed its wizardly approval test. You have to pass 3 tests before it'll trust you. All right, Michael, good night. So let me at least set you guys up for what I'm going to be talking about. And mainly what I'm going to be talking about is the idea of denitrifying an aquarium, the elusive task of denitrifying an aquarium. And I'm probably going to go over, again, once I get going, my brain will just go down that alley and God knows where we'll end up. But I will probably go over like how it all works. I do have a basic understanding of it. I've never actually done it. I've never actually tried it, but I've never felt the need to. I chased the knowledge of it for a long time because there's a lot of bad information in the fish keeping hobby out there about it. And I was getting a lot of bad information and no information. And I finally looked into the wastewater industry, and I looked at how the wastewater industry denitrifies their water, and because they do it on a fucking insane industrial scale. And once I understood the process and I understood the chemistry behind what was going on and the biology behind what was going on, it all kind of came together for me. And like, now I get it. I understand how to do that in an aquarium. It can be done. It can be done fairly simply, I'll say. It doesn't necessarily mean it won't be a challenge to do it, but it's not a complicated setup in order to do it. Just getting it dialed in right is probably the most challenging part, and it can take some time to get it really dialed in. But you can set an aquarium up so that any nitrate that is produced in the water, excess amount of nitrates, will slowly be broken back down into nitrogen gas, and just off-gassed through the water. And you can, reduce nitrate in your tank potentially down to 0 by doing this. So that's not a discussion. That's not an argument. That can be done. Part of the argument that goes around on the YouTubes is how to do that. And that's where Father Fish is going to come into the discussion later. But I got a message from a friend of mine, and he basically said, like, he's kind of changing his mind now. He's always kind of agreed with me that a simple deep sand bed type setup won't denitrify a tank. So I'm not exactly sure what he's got going on, but I know he's a deep and under gravel filter guy. That's going to be very important factoring in. And so he has a tank that he was expecting to find a lot of nitrate in. It originally had nitrate. He put a catfish in there. And when he checked nitrate again a few weeks later, it was down to 0. And even, through multiple confirmation tests, was continually getting 0 nitrate. So now he was just like, maybe do I have to eat my fucking words? Am I wrong about how this denitrification thing goes? So I won't quote him, but Father Fish did come up in the conversation because Father Fish talks about denitrification a lot. And I had to point out that I still think Father Fish is wrong with what he says, and I can back that up, and I'm not just talking shit. I will explain what I mean when I say I think he's wrong. And I would love to have this conversation with him. I had the first half of it with him years ago. I've never been able to have the conversation where I told him, like, okay, you were wrong about everything you fucking told me. But I did everything he told me and it didn't work. And I've learned a lot since then. And I know why it didn't work, because I was given bad information. And so anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about in a nutshell. I know that was a long-winded wind up for what the setup is. So you can God only imagine what's going to happen when I actually start talking about it. So let me settle my brain in here, do some more weed, and get settled into a place to sit, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. I don't necessarily even think a deep bed stores nutrients. I'll have to give that some thought. I know it doesn't store waste products. I've had people over the years say that if you don't gravel vac, then you can poison your tank with nitrate because the gravel, the water that's in the substrate has more nitrate in it because that's where all the waste is. And so if that gets stirred up, it'll release all this nitrate up into the tank. That's nonsense. That's utter complete. Nothing about that is correct. You do not have excess amounts of nitrate in your substrate or down in the bottom. You can vac out a pile of the dirtiest, gunky filth in the corner. And if your tank has 60 parts per million, so is that gunk is going to have that. And so is whatever you suck out of the substrate. That's just what's in your tank. There are no concentrations of nitrate anywhere in the tank. Now, under rare circumstances, you can get buildups of gases if you've got decomposition going and maybe some big flat stones or a sand cap. And for some reason, you've got some decomposition going, you get some waste gases build up. So you can get certain concentrations of things. If you've got a very poorly circulated tank, you might get zones that have low oxygen in them. But stuff that's dissolved into the water, like nitrate, it's like water hardness. You're not going to find different water hardness in one part of the tank than you do in another. The nitrate is the same way. You're not going to find a different nitrate if you take a sample from near the filter versus the other end of the tank or down in the substrate or whatever. It's all the same water. So as far as a nutrient, I guess that would depend on how deep the substrate is, how loose the substrate is, how much stuff could break down and filter down in between the individual pieces of substrate and create sort of a dirt, basically. I mean, that's kind of what dirt is. It's just a combination of ground minerals and waste products that have broken down and decayed and all sorts of stuff. And so I could see that. I could see you building up sort of a dirt base. A lot of my tanks have that nice thick black layer underneath of the substrate, and I like it for that purpose. So I could see that if you've got a deeper substrate. But once you get deeper to a certain point, it becomes unnecessary. I've done like a 6-inch deep sand bed, and I won't do that again. It just didn't seem at all necessary. I like 2 to 3 inches, and that's about all I need. And I also do use, not always, but I really like the substrate you're looking at now. It's Eco Complete, and it's bimodal, so it has like sand and a very light porous gravel. So the sand settles to the bottom and gives you like a dense base layer. Your plants can root into it. And then the porous loose stuff sits on top and gives you tons of biofiltration. The very oxygenated water can move through that substrate fairly easily. And again, it's a porous substrate, and that allows for a lot of real estate for the bacteria and stuff to grow, and also allows for a lot of water movement. And so it really helps with the nitrogen cycle. It looks nice. It's got all the trace nutrients and stuff that your plant, your rooted plants need. It's really good stuff. It's expensive, but it's a really good substrate. And then, of course, I also use actual river gravel that I collect myself in different streams and stuff around here. And I'm not opposed to the idea of just using like a bag of pea gravel or really small gravel from the, Lowe's or whatever. Well, that's what I was going to say, scholars. The deep bed, and slowly that deep bed is getting less deep. It's my betta tank, the No Faces tank. If you look at it, it's still got a pretty hefty depth of gravel in there, but this is one tank that when I do, I mean, you can see it's still deeper than my hand is. And I've been working that down slowly. Every time I do a water change in there with the open-ended just my open siphon to get all the scum off the bottom, I always make sure I skim a little stuff off the surface. I pull some of the sand out. I pull some of the gravel out, and I save that in the bucket. When I pour the bucket off, I'm careful not to pour the gravel down the toilet. Once I get the bulk of the water out, I give it a good rinse, get as much of it out as I can by rinsing the bucket. I then put that in a little container and just fill it with hydrogen peroxide and let it sit. So I completely sterilize it and then rinse it off with water, and I put it into either another container and save it, or I put it into another tank. I do the same thing with this tank. If I do, remove any of the stuff by accident during a vacuum, I do collect it, save it, rinse it, clean it, and then put it back in the tank. So the Eco Complete's pretty expensive stuff. I don't throw that away. Sand and tiny gravel mix. Yeah, that's exactly what the Eco Complete is, except the gravel is even better than actual gravel. It's made out of like it's not like pumice, but think, like a puffed rock kind of thing. It's a really, really lightweight, loose, granular, but it's porous. And so it's just got tons of surface area for bacteria to grow in. And again, it allows for the water movement. Again, I can't say enough stuff. And I like the black substrate. I've always liked a really dark substrate. I do have a natural substrate in a few of my tanks, but typically I go for the dark substrate. So, all right, everybody, let me bring the old camera over here. Let me get set up. I got to lower my table so I can see the monitor when I'm sitting down. Ugh, my back is freaking killing me. I am so out of shape. I decided today I'm going to start working out again, although I don't know when I'm going to start working out again, because every time I think about it, I just really don't feel like it. But I feel like I'm getting skinny, not in an unhealthy way. I do have people that are concerned about me because I am losing weight. I'm down to like 167 pounds now, which again, I'm like, this is like high school weight. I can't believe I'm down to under 170, but it's, my arms aren't there anymore, and like my muscles are gone. And so if I actually just started working out and got back to the size I was, 6 or 7 months ago, I'd probably put 10 or 15 pounds back on, and it would be, a good 10 or 15 pounds. It'd be muscle. I just got to get motivated enough to actually do it. I was pretty good about working out and doing my sit-ups and stuff for a while there. Quite a while, actually, and then I just kind of fizzled. Oh, well, we'll see. My live stream nights were, that's probably what happened. I got kind of out of sorts with my live streams and stopped really, making it such an event. I used to start getting ready for the live stream at least an hour before the live stream started. I would start working out, listening to music, and getting myself in the right frame of mind, thinking about what I was going to talk about, getting all just prepped and ready to go. And during that period of time, I would work out. I'd get on my Bowflex, and I'd do cardio, and I'd, get on my gym and lift weights. And eventually I just kind of don't do that anymore. So, all right, I'm still trying to find a place to put my camera where my monitor where I can actually see what's going on without looking like sideways. I can look at the camera and see the monitor at the same time. And I think this might actually work. It's just so crazy. It might work, or however that's supposed to go. I always get the order of how that's supposed to be said mixed up. All right, let me bring my stool of death over here so that you can see me. That's probably important for this part. Oh, sweet Jesus, my back is fucking killing me. I'm bending over trying to get all my stuff down to where I need it, and I'm fucking dying. All right, good night, sweet prince. My wizardly friend. All right, everybody, we're going to talk about water chemistry nerd stuff now. So brace yourselves. This is either going to get really interesting or really boring, depending on how you feel about nitrates and the nitrogen cycle. Come on. Get on down there. All right. Did I get this right? All right, that's not too bad. I can actually look at you and still see the monitor. I'm looking a little off to the side, but it's better than looking, sideways while I talk to you. And you can see a little bit of the discus tank. So let me. That feels good. Well, you're going to get a little bit of this. Where is it? A little bit of this glare right here. Where is it? Come on. There it is. After all these years, I still go the wrong damn direction when I'm looking at the monitor versus where I'm supposed to be, which direction I'm supposed to be pointing. Let me turn this down a little bit too because it's blinding me. I could turn it all the way this way, or I could turn it all the way that way so it looks like I'm dying. Or we can go with the sunburn look. We'll go for half in the middle. I always turn the wrong damn dial. I was trying to just turn it down a little bit. There we go. So, where shall I begin? Let's start with Father Fish because that always gets everybody interested. I don't know why. I don't know why he's such a celebrity. It's why everybody loves his channel so much. I'm trying to pack the bong up and it's already packed up. I never hit it before. You're high when you pack it up and then set it down and forget to hit it before you start to try to pack it up again. So. Nah. Shouldn't have gone for that third one. Where shall I begin? A long time ago, I was on a quest to figure out how to denitrify an aquarium. I feel like I put this camera somewhere better than where it is. I was on a quest to figure out how to do this, and everybody talked about, doing this and doing that. And I'd thought about doing, an algae scrubber and on and on and on. And so along comes Father Fish. He was brand new at the time. Didn't have a whole lot of people watching his channel, and so I got to having a conversation with him about it because he kept talking about this deep, the system he had with this deep sand bed. And he just kept telling me I think he still technically is a channel member. I think he still has a membership. I know he popped into one of the live streams one night, so he does still watch. And again, I'm not talking shit about him. I'd love to have this actual conversation with him. But he told me, he kept telling me on my live streams and kept telling me under my videos, man, just, you keep asking about these nitrates and you keep struggling with these nitrates, just do a deep sand bed. And it'll change the way you keep fish. You'll never do another tank. This will be it. That'll be how you do tanks from now on. So I had a conversation with him about it of like, how do you actually do it? And he just kept saying, like, you just put 6 inches of sand in there. You just put 6 inches of substrate in there, and it'll just denitrify itself. And I didn't understand the process, but that still just didn't seem right. It seems like there's got to be more than just put deep sand in a tank. And he insisted that, like, let's just do that. Put I know you already like plants, and you just do your normal plants and everything. It takes a little time to get established, but you won't have any nitrates in your tank ever again. And I said, just substrate. I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't have to do layers of stuff. There's no special, like, nope, just. I was like, okay, man, if you say so. And so I set that tank up, and I even did use the Eco Complete that does give you that better chance of denitrification based on what I know now. You have a much better chance with doing a deep sand bed with something like that than you would with a standard, just aquarium gravel, the same consistency all the way through. And so I set it up and I watched that tank for, I don't know, it was a year before I finally gave up, maybe a year and a couple of months. And I finally just threw in the towel and said, look, I'm done. This doesn't do shit. Um, I had some, by then he was much more popular. He had a bunch of loyal followers who would attack me every time I said anything that didn't treat him like he was the all-knowing fish keeper. And so when everybody told me I'd done it wrong and I didn't wait long enough and you just got to, and I was like, if I got to do all this magic shit and put the tank together on a fucking rainy Tuesday and, blah, blah, and all this shit, then that's not something that works. That's magic. And this doesn't fucking work. It doesn't do anything. It just takes up a lot of space in my tank. My tank functions the same as if I had 2 inches of substrate in there. All I need is enough substrate to root my plants in. Depending on how tall and big and hardy your plants are, you might want a little more substrate, a little more compact substrate to really give the roots something to hold on to. That's the stuff I take into consideration. The idea of denitrifying a tank simply by putting a deep substrate in there it just doesn't work, to my knowledge. And I've been banging my head against that problem for years, and I cannot come up with a way that would work. What does work, however, well, let me finish my thoughts on Father Fish. So if I understand the way he says to set a tank up correctly, it's basically the idea of you set up your deep substrate, you put all the nutrient stuff in it that's good for the plants and everything. You heavily plant the tank, and then you just put a few fish in it, lightly stock it, and then maybe you feed it every other day or 3 or whatever, and you won't have any nitrate. Well, no shit. If I had 2 inches of substrate, a heavily planted tank, and lightly stocked it and barely fed it, I wouldn't have any nitrates either. The secret with planted tanks and nitrate is not so much that the plants absorb the nitrate, and then they do, but they much prefer to absorb ammonia. It's much easier for the plant to absorb the ammonia. It's much easier for the plant to use the ammonia. So when the fish put off ammonia, which comes directly out of their gills into the water, it's not just the decaying stuff in the bottom and the stuff in the filter. The fish are dispensing ammonia as they swim around the tank. The plants absorb the ammonia, and then there's no ammonia in the tank to turn into nitrite or nitrate. And so you end up with no nitrate, because while the plants may use up the nitrate gradually, what they're really doing is sort of preventing the nitrate from developing. Now, once you get into stocking tanks the way I do, plants can only eat so much, and if you stock a tank the way I do, you're going to get nitrates that accumulate in the tank. There's no way that the plants are going to be able to absorb them as fast as that. If you've got a dog, you can't put 25 pounds of food in its bowl and expect it's just more food, more dog. It just doesn't work that way. There's only so much food these plants can eat. Now, the more nutrients they have, the more light they have, the longer the light's on, the warmer the water is to a point. There's things you can do to help the plants absorb more nutrients, but there's still limits. And so stocking density and amount you feed is important, because basically all the food you put in there, the protein in particular, if you're feeding a high protein food, you're going to get more nitrate. The stuff that's in fish food that's non-protein, the wheat germ and stuff like that, that's non-nitrogenous. Protein is a nitrogenous chemical, and so or whatever. And so when food that contains protein breaks down in the fish's body, just like when we consume protein, we have to drink a lot more water if we have a high protein diet. That's because in our body, the protein breaks down, turns into ammonia, and then we have to store the ammonia. We convert it into urea and then store it as urine, water soluble you know, and then we get rid of it when we can. But the fish don't have to do that. They live in an aqueous solution, if you will. And so they can just dispense the ammonia directly out of their gills. They don't have that same sort of urea cycle that we do. We contain our aquarium in our body. They're in their aquarium, and so they just dump the ammonia out through their gills. And so if you balance the feeding with the amount of protein you're putting in there, because again, the protein is where the nitrate ultimately comes from. Low protein, few fish, you got no issues with nitrate if you got a lot of plants in your tank. High protein, a lot of fish, a lot of stocking, crayfish, you know, stuff swimming around all over the place, you're going to have nitrate buildup in your tank. So to denitrify a tank, you can do that. And I'm going to wet my whistle and we will talk about that. And again, my friend, I know he's big on undergravel filters. And if I remember what he said correctly, I do believe the tank that he discovered the zero nitrate in is a tank that had an undergravel filter. I'm not going to get to your comments right now because I'll start talking and that'll completely derail me. And I want to wrap this up in one package. So hang on a minute. And you know, I've been complaining about dry mouth for a while. I thought it was the nicotine. It was actually the tea. I'd switched over to drinking tea instead of coffee. And the tea must have like some kind of desiccating effect, like if you ever drank dry wine or dry champagne, it makes your mouth feel dry afterwards. Tea must do that too, because when I stopped drinking the tea, my mouth stopped feeling dry like that. I'm back on coffee, by the way. I got a good deal on some coffee, and oh god, it's so good. Coffee is so much better than tea. I'm so happy. So hang on, I'm not, you know, I haven't got distracted. We are still going to talk about how to denitrify a tank. It's honestly, it's not that complicated, and I think you'll be able to follow along with me. So hang on a minute. Let me get some nicotine in my system here. That ought to do it. So first of all, when we talk about our nitrogen cycle, we often talk about it in terms that just make it easy to understand, but are not necessarily accurate. And the main way we do that is we talk about, we have a bacteria in the tank that eats the ammonia and uses it as food or a fuel source, you know, energy source. That is true, but thinking of it as food is thinking about it as wrong. They're not eating it. It's a chemical reaction. There's a chemical process that's happening. And what's going on is the ammonia is being oxidized. An oxygen atom is getting taken out of your aquarium water and added to that ammonia, which then becomes nitrite. And then when that nitrite gets changed into nitrate, the same process is happening. Oxygen is taken out of your water, added to that, and it becomes, or I'm sorry, is it that way or is it I always get confused about which way it's going. Is it nitrogen that builds up? Anyway, that's what's happening. Again, I'm getting the chemistry wrong here. I'm probably not in the right state of mind. I should have done a minute's research before I started talking about this. But what you end up with is a lot of nitrogen bound up with some oxygen. And then that's what we call the nitrate in the tank. And then we do the water change and get it out. So this is a process that consumes oxygen out of your water. It is also releasing hydrogen ions while it's doing this. So your water is becoming slightly more acidic as your tank is processing the ammonia down into nitrate. You are actually releasing hydrogen ions, which again, as they accumulate, your pH comes down. So all that process is happening. And then that gets us to where our tank really can't do a lot anymore because most of our tanks are an oxygen-rich environment. To undo that process, you need an oxygen poor environment, and you need a completely different type of bacteria. The bacteria that breaks the ammonia into nitrate is an aerobic bacteria, and it uses oxygen, whereas the ammonia or the bacteria that lives in the deep substrate, if you get your system set up properly, and we'll get there, that is anaerobic bacteria. So it actually gets its oxygen from the food rather than the other way around. So you got oxygen being added to it on one and oxygen being removed from it on the other, or vice versa. Again, I'm a little confused about that point, but you get the general idea, I hope. And so you need that environment to be set up properly, and you need the water to be in the right condition when it gets into that environment. So the deep substrate is important for a reason, but you have to move the water from the oxygen rich part of the tank into the oxygen poor part of the tank. And that's where an undergravel filter comes in. You set an undergravel filter up down there, you get a nice deep bed of substrate going. And as you know, an undergravel filter draws water down through the substrate into the plumbing and then up and back out of the tank, to the surface. And so if you do that too quickly, the oxygen nitrate rich water goes down through the substrate and gets to the bottom where it's still oxygen rich, and you get no denitrification. But if you set it up properly, the water goes through that gravel slowly enough that all of the oxygen, as it's being oxidized, all that oxygen is getting taken out of the water, and it reduces the oxygen level in the water as it slowly makes its way to the bottom. So when it gets down into that lower area, you're now in an environment where it's a very low oxygen environment. The bacteria can thrive down there in that low oxygen environment, and now it can undo what was done in the top part. We always refer to this as the nitrogen cycle. This is only 1/3 of the nitrogen cycle. The undoing the nitrogen is the other third of the nitrogen cycle, and that nitrogen gets released as nitrogen gas back into the atmosphere, which then gets reabsorbed into plants, which then get consumed, and then they go back in to the first part of the nitrogen cycle. So that's the nitrogen cycle. It's the whole system from start to finish. It includes being released as gas, being reformed into nitrogen and nitrates in plants. The animals eat the nitrates or proteins and gets released into the tank. The tank breaks it down into the nitrate or whatever, the ammonia, and then it gets changed back into nitrogen gas and released back into the atmosphere. That's the nitrogen cycle. What we have in the tank that we think of is only 1/3 of that. So you can achieve the denitrification. And again, it's not that complicated or complex. Dialing it in, and depending on how oxygen rich your water is, depending on how much bioload and what ammonia you've got in your water, nitrogen you got in your water, you just got to dial in getting that mixture right, and it should do that. It should work. This is very similar to what a wastewater facility does. It has stilling ponds and settling ponds, and it starts out as converting all that ammonia and all that waste product into nitrate. And then it takes that water and it goes through a series of ponds where it gets less and less oxygen in it. And then eventually, originally it's oxygenated. You ever see where they're running all those bubbles and everything through it? That's to get it to the nitrate stage quickly. They then move it into the stilling ponds where the oxygen is able to rise out and it off gases, plus all of the processes use up the rest of the oxygen, and eventually it gets into being oxygen poor water, and then the bacteria in that water denitrifies it, off gases the nitrogen gas, and then you get your effluent. That's what's clean and able to go back into the environment. And a lot of times it's actually cleaner than the groundwater. It has less nitrate in it. My nitrate out of my groundwater has like 80 parts per million if I don't treat it. I treat it, through my water softening system, and I still have about 20 to 40 parts per million coming through my nitrogen removing system. So you can have a lot of nitrate in your groundwater. But that takes me to my final part of this discussion, and that is that worth it? And my answer is no. Now, if you are somebody that's interested in the science and the biology and all that, and you want to try to set it up and get it to work as a hobby to see if you can do it, that's fantastic. Have at it. That's a cool thing to do. I wish you success. Tell me how it works out for you. That's a good idea. That's cool. That's a neat thing to do if you're looking for like something to try to experiment with taking your fish keeping to the next level. I'm not really interested in doing that. And the real linchpin to all this is that nitrate's not that big a deal. I'm not saying it doesn't have any effect on your fish, and there aren't certain fish that it does have some impact on, and fry are more susceptible to it, et cetera, et cetera. But by and large, you don't have to worry about nitrate in your aquarium. It's not really doing anything. You got more to worry about excessive algae growth than you do any kind of negative impact on your fish's health with a little bit of excess nitrate in your tank. So the nitrate's not really an issue. But there's a lot of other reasons to do water changes. There's other water parameters that for some reason don't often get talked about. The two that get talked about mostly are the two that matter the fucking least. It's the fucking pH and nitrate. Your water hardness is far more important. Your water's carbonate hardness, if you're worried about your pH, you should be far more worried about your carbonate hardness. Most people don't even know what that is, but are still concerned about their pH, and yet haven't learned enough to understand what carbonate hardness is. If you're that worried about pH, you should understand carbonate hardness a little better. Those things are more important. The fact that you've got hydrogen ions, again, your tank is being acidified over time. Nutrients are being used out of the tank. How much phosphates are developing in your tank? How much tannin? Is your water just getting so brown that it's you don't like the way it looks anymore? That can be a reason to do a water change. There's a lot of reasons that I do water changes. Sometimes it's simply because I want to clean the glass anyway. I got to throw the hose in there to top it off. So before I top it off, why not drain some water, get the glass cleaned down, and we've put fresh water in the tank for the fish, and then I don't have to worry about it for a while. Never, ever do I consider the nitrate when I do a water change. And if I did decide at some point that I was going to do a water change because one reason or the other, and then I tested the nitrate and it came out at 0, I'd still do the water change. I already had my reason for doing the water change. It's got too much tannin in it, or I need to refresh the hardness a little bit, or whatever. I just need to do some filter maintenance. So why not just do a water change while I'm in there, kind of thing. You don't have to do a lot of water changes. You don't have to do them frequently. If you set your tanks up the way I do, you can do a few water changes a year. You can do them quarterly. That's not an issue. I don't have a problem with doing water changes. My 29, it's lucky if it gets one a year. My pond gets maybe 2 water changes a year, and there's no filtration on my pond at all. I occasionally do that kind of little bit of filtration that you know about, but effectively I got no filtration on my pond other than biological. I'm talking mechanical filtration, not biological. Obviously all my tanks are very biologically healthy. And that's my point, is you get your tank set up right, and you just, it's not a big deal. Just don't worry about nitrate. It's, again, you want to do it for a science project, great science project. If you're worried about denitrifying your tank because you want to keep your fish healthy, just do a water change every month, and don't overfeed your fish and don't overstock your tank, and problem solved. It's as simple as that. So those are my thoughts in a nutshell. I could probably go on more, but I probably got about 1,000 comments I need to get caught up on, and it's already well after 10 o'clock. So let me start getting caught up on comments. And if you could probably, maybe I'll slow down on the comments till I get caught up. I would appreciate that. I don't even know how far back I got to go. All right, there. I've read that one before, so I don't have that many to get caught up on. That's good. All right, let's see. Where was I? Where was I? I'm going to need my glasses to even read this pretty soon. I got a tablet because I could no longer read on the phone. The screen's too small. And now I'm even going to need to put my old man eyes on pretty soon to read this damn tablet. All right, let me see where I was again. Let's see. Yeah, I know he's been doing the fish keeping, father fish that is, for a very long time. I do need. I use. You're not kidding, Ark. I used to fill this shirt. I used to like this shirt because it made me look good. Now it fucking hangs on me. I don't even think I'll be alive by the time I'm 80. I always give myself to about maybe 75, 76. I figure I got about 20 years left in me. All right. Yeah, well, the letting nature take its course and all that kind of stuff. That's where he and I are of a kindred spirit, but we can still disagree on some things. And I do disagree about some of the ways he keeps his tank. I definitely disagree with the way he presents it as though it's the correct way of keeping a tank. And if you don't keep it the way he does, you're just doing it wrong. I don't agree with that at all. You do whatever kind of damn tank you like, and you have fun with it and enjoy it. And if you're enjoying it, then you did it right. That's my. It's as simple as that. If you're enjoying your fish tank and you're enjoying your hobby, then you're doing it right. You know, that's all I'll say about that because I got a lot to get caught up on. But I am, as you can see, very much about letting a tank. Again, I don't even run filters on most of my tanks anymore. But I do also understand that it's not nature and it's not a natural environment. It's a fish tank. So there are some things I still do need to do, and there are some things I still need to attend to. I just try to reduce them to a minimum, and I try to make none of them sort of points of failure critical, where if I forget to do that thing, the tank collapses. I got a lot of breathing room in my tanks. They can get really ugly before anything starts getting, dangerous for the fish. Algal growth and all that stuff. I know people think it looks nasty or whatever. They think my tanks are. That algae ain't hurting those fish at all. It just looks unsightly, but the tank's not unhealthy because it's got a lot of algae growing in it. That's ridiculous. So anyway. Let's see. Well, CO2 with all that stuff is, I hope your plants are rocking. They ought to be. I don't know if I said hi or not, Mr. Natural, but hello. Yeah, living substrate. To me, again, depending on the kind of tank you want to set up, obviously, you like the bare glass bottom tank. You're not concerned about a living substrate. But to me, a living substrate is vital to a healthy tank. That's one of the reasons I cannot have a filter on it, is because I have a very active living substrate. Let me see. My way or the highway, baby. Well, I'm not sure of the difference between anoxic and anaerobic. You don't need a zero oxygen environment. You need a low oxygen environment. And that can be achieved in an aquarium. Hey, it has been a long time. Well, if your tank is properly functioning, all that muck should break down. I used to think that too, but I've talked to a lot of people with undergravel filters that swear by them and have used them for years, and they never ever get in there and clean them, and they always seem to function just fine. Again, you got to set them up properly. Um, Harryman, I have lost weight. Oh, thank you, Art. And welcome aboard to everybody that got a membership. And don't forget, I do a members only live stream on Wednesdays. So you should get a notification now that you're a member. But just in case you don't remember, Wednesday night at 8, I will be doing another live stream. So make sure you tune in for that. I don't know about him selling freeze-dried candy at fish shows, but maybe. That sounds like something an 80-year-old man would do. Damn, Steve, you did. Well, you should have known once I got to talking about the whole nitrate and nitrogen cycle and all that kind of stuff. We would have gone. I know some of you are new around here, but I go back way back into nitrogen and nitrates and all that kind of thing. It's part of my legacy as a fish keeper. I don't know if I was the first person in the aquarium hobby to start like trying to dispel the myth that nitrates were killing your fish. But I was amongst the first, and I was a fairly popular channel back then, and I got dragged and ragged, and oh my God, it was so awful. And for years, I just kept saying, like, I don't care what all you people say, you're just wrong. I've done the research, you know, I literally did research. I set up experiments and stuff, and I did, you know, I'll call it research. I read a lot of papers and I read a lot of information. That's not technically doing research, but, you know, I did a lot of that, and I was convinced I was right. And it's to this day, it still annoys me. It's a little pet peeve of mine. I was preaching this shit for years, and I was getting kicked in the teeth every time I said it. And then Johnny come lately, Father Fish comes along, and suddenly he has this worship following, and he starts telling everybody, "You don't have to worry about nitrates." And everybody's like, "Father Fish says you don't have to worry about nitrates." Yeah, I've been saying that shit for 5 years, and nobody seems like, again, nobody listened to me when I said it. He says it, and they just take his word for it. I laid down the science. I explained why it wasn't. I explained what nitrate is, how it affects your body. I talked about it in our diets, and nobody would believe me. You know, no matter how much I laid it out there, Father Fish comes along and says, "Yeah, you don't have to worry about that shit." And everybody was like, "I don't." Gosh. And then they'd come to my channel and explain to me how I didn't need to worry about the nitrates because that's what Father Fish says. And that's where that whole gag on my channel, Father Fish says. I had so many people come to my channel and say, Father Fish says, and then it would, they you know, fill in the blank. It would be something like, yeah, no shit, I've been saying that for, you know, the better part of a decade now. I know that. You don't have to tell me that Father Fish explained it to you. I probably explained it to you 2 years ago. You just ignored me, and you know. So anyway, that's where all that comes from. Again, it's a little annoying to me, but I have no ill will towards Father Fish or anything. I got nothing against the guy, like I said, but I do have my disagreements about the way he, you know, thinks a tank can just sort of be set up real easily, and everybody. That would be my other thing that I have with him as an issue. You come in the door as a fish keeper, you're a newbie. You know, if you want to start a really sophisticated, low to almost zero maintenance tank that nitrates don't accumulate and everything in, you know, that's cool, and maybe even try it. But I'm also somebody that believes that somebody should enjoy a hobby immediately so that they don't get frustrated with it. If I take somebody fishing for the first time, I really make sure they catch fish. You know, if I take somebody out kayaking for the first time, I really try to make sure they have fun rather than an unpleasant day, because they're never going to want to go kayaking again if they had an unpleasant day. And so if you bring somebody in, I think about what I knew about fish keeping. You know, even if I followed step-by-step instructions the way, and that's just not how my personality is, that's kind of boring to me. It's like putting, you know, a Lego set together and reading the instructions to do it. Like, what's the point of that? You're just following the fucking instructions on something. You know, if you're building something practical, like I need to put a table together, fine, I'll read the instructions. A fish tank is like a thing I want to experience and learn about and create, and there's an artistic expression to it. And you know, if I had come in the door and tried to put together a tank that was that low maintenance, I would have been an utter failure. I tried to do that with a saltwater tank, and I was an utter failure. I got really frustrated with it, and I've never thought about doing a marine tank again. And so I just think a lot of people new in the hobby getting in there to this, like, hey, this is how you should set, like, whoa, like, cool your jets, man. Like, let's teach them how to set up a basic fish tank, like it's, when you buy the kit at Walmart and it's got the basic instructions on the back. Let's start there. Let's explain the nitrogen cycle. Let's crawl before we walk. Let's walk before we run. He starts from, hey, you want to try hang gliding? Climb on, like, let's do some instruction before we put them on the fucking hang glider and push them off a cliff. That would be another dispute I have with his style, is that he just starts right out of the gate. You should begin with this highly sophisticated system, and what's worse is he doesn't seem to present it as a highly sophisticated system. He presents it as, oh, this is simple, and to him it is. I can throw a tank together like that. I can put these tanks together without fucking thinking about it. If you're new, there's a lot to think about. It's just like driving a car. I've done it for so many years. I don't have to think about all the shit I need to do and where I need to look and all that stuff. It just happens. When you're new, you're thinking about all that stuff, and you're thinking about shifting gears and like all of it. Don't overwhelm people at that stage. Let's learn into the hobby. Again, if somebody wants to try and to grow their knowledge or expand their skill sets, and they want to try a more sophisticated tank, of course you have to do that at some point. There are going to be failures and setbacks, and that's all part of the learning process. Can we not start with the failures and setbacks? Can we have some successes first to get some good positive vibes going, and maybe ease them into the failures and setbacks? It's bad enough when new fish keepers experience their first dead fish, or their first, they brought 10 fish home from PetSmart and 6 of them died overnight. And of course the PetSmart employee treats it like they did something wrong. And they're stressing out over that and having anxiety or whatnot. You got father fish trying to fucking tell them how to set up a no maintenance aquarium. It seems a bit much for a brand new fish keeper. So maybe like ease people in. I'm all for jumping in the pool rather than slowly working your way in. But like, can we jump in the shallow end? If you don't know how to swim, don't jump in the deep end. Jump in the kiddie pool end, and it's knee deep, and you can cope with that. And then we'll work our way to the deep end a little later. So I don't know. I could probably throw a few more metaphors out there, but I'm going to do a bong hit instead. I really ought to be wrapping it up too. It is 10:30. Yeah, damn, that's like a little baby bird hit. Let me do another one of them. This is another little baby bird hit. Now that I remember, I broke both pieces off because they were going to go in together. But when I picked them up, I thought I had gotten 2 little nuggets to do bong hits with. That should have been a 2-for in 1. So we're going to do 2 halves. Two-thirds. All right, let me see where I am. All right, there I am. Bag of dirt or bag of candy. He does sell dirt, doesn't he? He sells like his special soil mixture. All right, I'm just trying to get caught up here. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Again, my first tank was a little bit of Java Fern. I think I got a little piece of Anubias. I got some skirt tetras, a Corey, and a rubber lip pleco. And I think I also got some neon tetras. And I put all that in a 10-gallon tank. So I'd probably still put all that in a 10-gallon tank.
I never really had any issues with it. I had a fair amount of success with it, but again, what I knew about fish keeping, I'm honestly surprised I had the success I did. But I will admit that's a reasonably heavily stocked 10-gallon tank. But if you think my tanks are stocked heavily now, you should have seen them back in the day. I always used to joke about, like, when I put a new fish in a tank, I needed a crowbar and a stick of butter, to lube the fish up and jam it in there, because I stocked my tanks. And through experience over the years, I learned that there's a reason they tell you not to overstock the tank. You can have 9 canister filters on the tank and have all the biological filtration in the world, but still have an overstocked tank. You can have 0 nitrate in the tank, but just too damn many fish for the tank to function properly. You got to find that balance. You can do a heavily stocked tank, but there's a sweet spot between that and tipping it over. I tend to lean towards my 55 Garami tank as an example. That's very heavily stocked, and I'm biased because it's my tanks, but I'm sure other people might think that's overstocked. I couldn't argue with them if they did, although I might try. And I've lost fish in there. Almost all the Garamis are gone. I've lost some of the Tetras. So we've been seeing a reduction in the bioload in that tank. And so that's honestly probably the reason I always have the issues with all of those, the algal growth and the cyanobacteria that grows all over everything. Everything else grows great in there too. But I get a lot of nasty shit growing in that tank. It's not unhealthy. It just looks unpleasant. And so I'm in the process, even on that tank, of allowing, through attrition, basically, just allowing that tank to lose some of its stocking density. It would be really helpful if I could get that striped Raphael out of there. I just don't really know where to put it at this point. But if I ever do get an opportunity to move it into a larger tank or something, I will definitely move that striped Raphael, and that will reduce a huge bioload on that tank. Anna, how are you? All right, everybody. I think on that note, I'm going to wind it down here. It is 10:30 after all. And much to my surprise, I didn't get a whole lot of questions or anything of a technical point. So I'm going to use that as my bailing out point. Hack the planet. Iceman, how are you doing? Hey, you did. You came in right as I was winding down. I'll do another bong hit before I get out of here. And that way everybody can say goodnight and all that kind of stuff. Got to get off camera for a minute here. I got a bunch of crud that builds up in my lips if I talk nonstop for an hour. And it looks, to say the least, inelegant for me to wipe it off. But it's annoying as shit. All right. I'm back and looking beautiful. All right, we're apparently doing another little tiny one here. Hang on, I think I need to clear this out. Do I? Yes, I do. All right, everybody, don't forget, if you are a member or you are a new member and you got a membership tonight or you'd like to join for a membership, we will be back again on Wednesday for a members-only live stream. They're a little more intimate, a little more chatty. We tend not to worry about doing any fish tank maintenance. So if you enjoyed this, last hour or so, me sitting here in front of the camera, chatting about what's on my mind or answering questions and stuff like that, the Wednesday night members live stream is a lot more like this. We do still go around and get all the fish fed, but we don't make a big deal out of it because I do it on every single live stream. So it's not like we haven't seen it before. So if that sounds good to you, join the channel. $2.99 a month, and then of course you'll also get access to my Discord, where you can join the community and post your videos. We do all kinds of stuff over there. You want to post your vacation videos or pictures of your kids or what you had for dinner, you can do all that kind of stuff over on Discord. If you are a weed smoker and you want to post your picture of your weed and you grow your own or whatever you bought this week, I got a whole section over there for adults only, growing the weed stuff. So check that out if you're interested. And then of course, as I always say, generally speaking, Friday nights, Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm live. Not always here, but more often than not, you can find me 8 o'clock Friday and Sunday. That was actually the perfect size. I killed it without any room to spare in my lungs. All right. The goldfish tank does not have a heater in it. And again, with the warmer temperatures we've been having, I've been having the fan on and pulling air through the house. I've got the window open in the far corner, so I've been pulling air through this room. So again, I'm going to guess maybe 74-ish, maybe 73, 72.8. So the goldfish tank is at 72.8, and the pond is at 73.7. So the pond's come down a little bit. It was at 74.4 earlier. So we've lost about 3/4 of a degree on the pond. That's probably just due to surface evaporation as the air moves across the room and goes across the surface of that pond. So this only has goldfish in it, so I could have a layer of ice across the surface of this tank and the goldfish would be fine as long as it was oxygenated water. My pond, however, actually has a lot of tropical fish in there. I've got molly. I do have a lot of cold water fish, though. I've got some minnows and stuff from down the stream. But I've got the cherry barbs. I had the neon barbs. I don't think they're in there anymore. I honestly don't even remember anymore. I got a bunch of fish in there that are tropical. Although, if all the barbs are gone, maybe the water was too cold, and maybe that's why the barbs are gone. The minnows are cold water fish, so they'd be okay. And mollies, which I still have the molly. I've still got some guppies and some live bears. And live bears can usually withstand cooler temperatures too. So maybe that's why all the barbs are gone. It's been 4 years. That doesn't seem like it's a very long time for the barbs. So maybe the cooler temperatures is why the barbs are gone. Oh, yeah, goldfish are cold water fish. Again, as long as you don't have any other tropical fish or anything in there with them, you don't need a heated tank. Now, again, if you keep them in your garage or something in Wisconsin or wherever you might be, I might not do an unheated tank for the goldfish, but they are cold water fish. They can live in ponds that freeze over in the winter and thaw in the spring. I will say that if your temperature goes below the upper 50s, the stop feeding them. They will go into a state of torpor where it's not exactly hibernation, but they don't really eat. And they'll stop eating until the temperature comes back up above 55. So don't let them get too cold. But 70s is like warm summer temperatures to goldfish. They're plenty comfortable at the low 70s. Yeah, they'll be fine. So, all right, everybody, you got another marathon, a long one tonight. It is almost 11 o'clock, close enough for me anyway. So I'm going to call it a night right there. And thank everybody for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you liked it, if you learned something, throw up a like, subscribe to the channel, join the membership, leave a super thanks, super chat. That's always helpful. Otherwise, members, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And all of my non-members, should you choose to come back, I will see you more than likely next Friday. I don't know what to tell you about that one, Anna. My last bag was unsuccessful, so I'm going to kind of leave that one up to you. Maybe do a little YouTube searching and see what other people have to say. If it's just kind of stopped and it's not developing anymore, maybe there's something going on there. Maybe it's time to just see what you get. Most of my fruit came from around the edges anyway. I'd get some in the middle, but most of it came from the edges, so maybe that's normal. I don't really know. I don't have a lot of experience with it. So, all right, everybody, on that note, I am going to say goodnight. So let me get out of here, and I will see you guys next time I see you. So thanks again, everybody. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and good night.